Greetings, everyone, and welcome to GameFace, episode 398 on SIFTD Games at SIFTD.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host and the founder of SIFTD, and I'm here to deliver some awesome video game discussion today alongside my best friend, Matthew Keil. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man?
I woke up with Barry Manilow's Copacabana stuck in my head, so the day can only improve.
And it's never going away.
Well, I don't even remember half the lyrics, so it's just like kind of like
just the tune, yeah.
I don't know what happened there. I haven't heard that song in 30 years.
It's probably still more enjoyable than playing a lot of the video games that were released this week.
True.
It's not been a great. Let's not.
It is kind of the visions of mana
of songs. Yeah. This is like the third episode of GameFace in a row where we don't have like a marquee big game to review for you guys. The good news though is that this has been one heck of a week for video game news. There's a ton of big news stories that happened this week, and we're here to discuss them with you guys today. We had a little bit of technical issues. You guys didn't know what was going on because you guys were waiting for the stream to start, but we had a PC that needed to restart here, and it literally took over an hour to like restart and reload, and that's where we have you guys in our chat. And so obviously it's an integral part of the show, so we had to wait until that PC loaded up, got everything ready to go before we could start the show. But here we are. It's a monumentally slow time, Matt. I don't know if I can remember since we've launched this show if we've had 3 episodes in a row without at least one big game in there. Can you?
There were definitely a couple of summer months. July. There have been
where we are right now.
Bad Julys before.
Yeah. Yep. Well, the good news is we have an awesome show for you guys today. Again, filled with a bunch of awesome topics. Not so many reviews, although we do have a lot of reviews. But I think, here's the thing, Matt. I think sometimes reviews for bad games are more fun than reviews for good games.
I mean, that's always true.
It is true.
Like people don't care about good reviews.
It's kind of, you're right, because it's just confirming what they already know. But we have some reviews for some pretty rotten games for you guys today on the show. Before we get going, I just want to remind everybody that we are supported 100% at patreon.com/SIFTD. That's SIFTD. Like a lot of people right now, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going through some pretty rough times right now. Our revenue is way down. Everyone's revenue is kind of way down right now. But I think other people maybe can afford to lose some of the revenue more than we can. So again, I know I've said this the last few episodes, but if you've really ever thought about supporting us, now is a really good time to do that. So again, please go to patreon.com/SIFTD, and for just $4 a month, you get all our content early. We'd really, really appreciate it. And then if you don't have money, you can still help us other ways. You can just like this show, you can comment on this show, you can subscribe. More importantly, you can share the show on social media. I don't see people doing that, like at all. I search for it. You guys aren't doing it. That can make a big difference. And again, if you have no money, that's a way that you can help us. And then another way you can help us is if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can subscribe with Twitch Prime to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/SIFTDGames. Literally, once you've hooked it up, it takes 3 seconds to do that. So if you've hooked it up in the past and you haven't done it for a while, please go and do that right now. Again, please go to twitch.tv/SIFTDGames. And you can just, if you've already done it, you just click the purple box, click one in the check down, submit, done. Please do it. It literally takes no time. It makes a huge, huge difference for us, and we just really appreciate it. We're trying to survive here, people. And we're about to talk about a publication that just went for 33 years and just had to close down. So again, if you want a world where there's more than just IGN and YouTube, you might want to start thinking about supporting some of these publications. Even if it's not us, somebody. If you want this type of content to continue and have something to consume, I know you guys like it. It's not free. People have to pay their bills. People have rent to pay. People have to buy food just like everybody else. People who do this stuff, we're not living for free, man. We don't live in some fantasy land where the video games just pay our rent. So if you could help us, we'd really appreciate it. Again, we're not the only ones who are going through this right now, but if you love GameFace, you got to support GameFace. I'm just sorry. That's just the way it is. That's the truth of it all. And we just lost the screen. Oh, there it came back up. Eric Cartmena says, I only need IGN and YouTube. Okay, well, if that's the truth, then I don't know why you're here. Maybe you just only need them, but you want this? I don't know. But anyway, bad things are going on right now.
I don't remember the last time I looked at IGN for, like, opinions on anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying they're the only ones that are like thriving right now.
Well, yeah, they're the 800-pound gorilla for sure. But it's not like Game Informer was small potatoes. Just their 800-pound gorilla died.
Yeah, and so. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking smack about IGN. It's a great publication, great content, great website. But I think we always need more than one opinion on pretty much everything in life. So that's where it's all headed. I mean, IGN just bought up a bunch of other websites. Didn't it just buy Eurogamer and Digital Foundry and like...
Well, I think their parent company did.
Yeah.
I don't something like that.
It's kind of turning into
nobody
like...
bought Digital Foundry. Digital Foundry is still their own thing.
Yeah, but they're still under the umbrella of Eurogamer.
Yeah, I mean, they work as a kind of a subsidiary.
Are they not officially affiliated?
No.
Really?
I mean, they're an affiliate, but I don't think they're not owned by anything. Last I checked, that might have changed. I mean, who knows?
So they've decided to hitch their wagon to Eurogamer.
Yeah, I mean, they have a deal with them. As far as I know, that's the deal.
Well, let's check in with you guys before we get into our housekeeping and see what you guys are up to. Nightwing 3060, does retweeting help? Yes, absolutely. Anything that you can do to get our show, our website, our content in front of new eyeballs, new people who have never heard of SIFTD, people who have never heard of GameFace, all those people make a big difference. So those are the new people that we need to sign up at our Patreon. So absolutely, retweets definitely work without a doubt. So thank you. Minority Games, thank you for doing that as well. Squishy Muffin says, my podcasts are this one, Digital Foundry, Jeff Kurtzman, and Game Scoop. Fair enough. Too Quick Capri says, all I need is IGN 64. The funny part is that that's why I'm here. That's why I'm in this business, was because of IGN 64. They got me hooked on the internet and that daily churn of game news that we're doing right now on SIFTD.
I saw a thing this week. Oh,
what is going on with this PC?
That is a process executing through the kernel. Don't touch it.
This PC is losing its mind right now.
It updated. It auto-updated, and it's doing a lot.
No, it's Logitech.
Logitech is having an update. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. This is a nightmare that just won't end. Okay, I got it. Go away, Logitech. Seriously.
Go away, Logitech. We're not talking about you yet.
Yet. We're actually going to talk about Logitech today. That's the funny part about it all. Minority Games, thank you for all those bits, man. I really appreciate that. Game Informer should have invested in video content the way IGN did. People want video content they don't want to read.
Well, Game Informer didn't have a choice on that.
They're a magazine.
Game Informer also was just, they were an outlet that was basically a mouthpiece for a major company that was trying to sell you games. They were their own independent editorial body, but they didn't decide. No one at Game Informer decided we're not going to do video. It's like that was just not what. GameSpot
the other thing is they have been doing video for years,
but it was never their focus.
No, but I mean it is now. They do pretty much more video content than they do written content.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, obviously. Yeah. The Legacy, thank you for Twitch Prime. Squishy Muffin, thank you for Twitch Prime. Music and fashion were always the passion. Mighty Pony Girl.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
I spent I took me forever I had to get to an internet connection finally to look up who the third character, the guy who wore a diamond was. I couldn't remember his name. Like, what was his name? Was it? I couldn't remember. It turns out it's Rico. It was Rico. He wore a diamond.
So anyway, yeah, Logitech bloatware, exactly, Cinetite. That's exactly what that was. There's no stopping the Logitech bloatware, unfortunately. So anyway, let's get going, actually. We have a huge show today. I know I said before, when we launched the show, I was like, oh, there's not a bunch of there's a lot of stuff in today's show, and we should probably just get going instead of screwing around. So let's get straight into housekeeping here.
I did see a crazy thing this week. IGN 64 reminded me of it, where it was some some younger kid or something on Twitter or whatever, but they were talking about you talk about the N64 and just like stuff about the N64, but just as a little throwaway line in there was the Nintendo 64 finally a big success after the failure of the Super Nintendo. And I'm like,
What?
What? Excuse me.
Where'd you see that?
Speaking embryo.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It was on Twitter. It was just a Twitter thing.
Well, that explains it all.
But it was just like, what? Like,
we gotta be careful, or Elon's gonna sue us for not advertising on Twitter. Because you saw that happen today, right?
Yeah.
He said he's going to sue companies for not advertising on Twitter.
Go ahead and do that. You fucking moron.
Wow.
Well,
he is literally insane, dude.
Well,
he has lost his mind.
No, he lost the divorce proceedings, is what he did. He lost custody. So all this crazy shit happened.
But
now
he started going crazy when his one kid came out as trans. That's when it all started.
Oh yeah.
That's when he lost his mind.
Right, but it's just this week is the divorce hearings and custody hearings, and clearly it's not going.
It's not going well, apparently.
He's also apparently.
I couldn't imagine why they wouldn't want him to have kids.
He's also apparently removing being able to see likes, retweets, and everything on tweets. So I guess you can click on the tweet to still see it, but it won't show it as part of the formatting. And it's like that's the whole thing. That's the.
Oh, I mean, he lets people use the N-word.
Right.
That's all I need to hear.
But
Done.
But if you mention cis, your post gets flagged as slurred.
Anyway, let's talk about Game Informer. Game Informer shut down this week. It had been in publication across print and digital for 33 years. Most of the veterans that had been at Game Informer left a while ago. Mm-hmm. So Andy McNamara,
or were booted out.
Right. He went to EA, where he's been for a while, and then the editor-in-chief that followed him left like a year ago, and he's working at a studio. I can't remember which one.
I don't remember.
He also jumped the line and is working at a publisher now. So it was mostly like the kind of the underlings, the interns and stuff like that. Kind of what happened at Game Trailers, honestly, where they like got rid of everybody who was making over $30,000 a year and then just let the interns take over. That's kind of what happened at Game Informer.
Inmates were running the asylum.
Yeah. And so here's the thing about Game Informer is it was prolonged longer than it naturally would have.
Very much so.
Because if you remember Game Informer, you used to get a free subscription when you signed up for GameStop's awards program. And that increased their circulation. It exploded. And basically, Game Informer, through that, shut down pretty much all the other magazines because their circulation exploded. And then other magazines couldn't compete for exclusive cover stories, which is a big deal in print media. And they eventually all went away. Game Informer sustained, and then eventually they stopped that program at GameStop, and you no longer got a free subscription to Game Informer, and that began the long, slow road to insolvency, basically.
In the end, it wasn't that slow, really, but...
Yeah, I mean, it did actually survive for quite a while afterwards, yeah.
It's, I mean, in the end, it was just because, you can't claim those inflated circulation numbers anymore, and so they can't milk advertisers for that much, and, it's no longer one of the nice things on the little item sheet, and so it goes away. Mm-hmm. That's all. I mean that's GameStop is slowly collapsing like a flan in a cupboard. Anyway, it's not. It's you're sort of waiting for the different parts of it to die off, and this is just the latest one, and a lot of people lost their jobs over it.
Yeah, I think Game Informer is still a good magazine, though. I don't want to misconstrue what I'm saying here.
I haven't read Game Informer in literally 10 plus years.
Me too. I haven't read a magazine in a really long time, but I used to read it because the other thing too is that they used to send it to me for free at Game Trailers. They just gave me a free sub.
Yeah, so I would get it.
I would thumb through it because they were competition. Their cover stories were competing with Jeff and I to get exclusive for Game Trailers or exclusives for his show on Spike TV. So I would always flip through to see what they got that we didn't get and stuff like that. And I would read it. And it was a good magazine. It was well laid out, well written for the most part. The reviews were mostly trustworthy, I felt.
I mean, I'm familiar with it under Andy's
McNamara.
leadership. That was all. I don't think I ever read it after he left.
Well, one thing I do want to say is that Game Informer, and you can see right here, has done us some favors in the past here on GameFace because there are times where they would get exclusives, and obviously I would always give them credit like I'm doing right there with the video. But there were lots of times where they would get exclusive footage of big games before anybody else, and if we wanted to show that stuff here on GameFace, we needed to run their footage and give them credit for the footage. So I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that created content off of the exclusives that Game Informer had. And so I just want to say formally, thank you to Game Informer and to the people who worked there. Your hard work helped us create some compelling shows. And a lot of times in weeks where there wasn't a lot of other stuff going on, we ended up having really good content thanks to them. So I appreciate Game Informer on a lot of different levels, but obviously as just a human being, I feel for the people who were working there who were just laid off. Because here's the thing, Matt, this is happening constantly. There are so many games journalists out there right now looking for work, and there are no jobs for them. So I feel like a lot of people are kind of being they were put in this position where either they need to pivot their career and basically work doing something else, or they go and start a Patreon. But Matt, we're getting to the point now where the Patreons for publications that have gone out of business, that's also a saturated market now. There's so many, because every time one of these publications shuts down, the people who are left over, most times, they start a new Patreon. And so you do wonder, like, when does the money for that all run out? And how sustainable is that over the long haul? It's just, games journalism right now, I would not tell anybody to get into this field.
No.
I would
tell everybody to get out of it.
Seriously, the amount of hours that I am working right now to just survive is insane. Like, if I worked out what I'm getting paid per hour, I probably would do better working at like Starbucks. I'm not kidding. If I dedicated 70, 80 hours a week to working at Starbucks versus doing this, like, that's where...
But you couldn't.
Right.
Because they wouldn't give you that kind of hours.
Oh, right. No, you're right. They would give me 35 to make sure they don't have to give me benefits or whatever. So I feel for the people who were laid off big time, because I can see the market. I can see what's going on. I wish I could hire these people. I wish after all this time I had got enough support from the community so that our business was thriving and I could hire some of these people into our independent gaming website. But people have decided, a lot of people decided they don't want to support us or a lot of other these independent coverage outlets, and this is what happens. So it sucks. I don't know what the answer is to any of this, Matt.
Well, the answer is...
start a YouTube channel, I guess.
Well, the answer is pivoting to right-wing grifter content. That's still doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But
where you just rile up.
You just sacrifice your integrity and...
just to make money.
And all that, yeah.
And you know I will never, ever do that, no. So...
We're certainly not going to do it in my house.
Yeah. So. I do wonder what's going to happen, Matt. Is it really just going to be IGN and YouTube channels?
It may well be eventually, yeah. I mean, isn't it now? Like, what else is
no, there's a lot of sites. I mean, we're still curating content on SIFTD from 20 or 30 sites. Now, most of them...
like Kotaku and...
Polygon.
Oh, yeah, Polygon.
Eurogamer.
Didn't Eurogamer get bought?
It's now, I think, under the IGN umbrella. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong, Matt. A lot of these sites are owned by the same parent company, right, but they're still out there.
But that's just media now.
So. Yeah, exactly. Do you think? I mean, is it just that the consumers have decided that that's what they want? Is it the market speaking? Is that what this is?
I don't know. Like, I'll be honest. Like, you say, so, oh, you want IGN? Like, if we didn't do this show anymore, I wouldn't read anything.
Really?
I know what I like. I know what I'm interested. I look at things for news, for opinions. I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. Really.
Do you think part of the problem maybe?
And also, like, I know enough people that I know their shit, that if I want to know what somebody thinks about, if I want to know what, somebody thinks about something, I'll just ask them.
Yeah. I do wonder, Matt, if part of it, in timing wise, this is perfect. Today we just published the episode of Pachter Factor on our YouTube channel about, is console gaming an old man's hobby now? Mm-hmm. And I do wonder if, because so many people that play console games are, like us, a little older, 30s, 40s, maybe even older than that, if they're like you. And they're like, I've seen it all, I've done it all, I know what I like, I don't really need people to tell me what I'm going to like or what I'm not going to like anymore, and they've just bailed.
There's probably a fair amount of that. Also, like, every kid I know, certainly kid of my friends that I have, every kid I know plays console games.
Yeah.
They just don't
engage like we do.
They don't engage, and they don't... like, one of the things several of my friends have been surprised by is how their kids just want to play the same games over and over. When I was a kid, we wanted new stuff all that. We were renting games all the time. We wanted to play something new every weekend. Like, that was the whole thing. And nowadays, the kids, all my friends' kids, they're like, they just want to play Portal Knights and Minecraft and Roblox and Fortnite. Like, they don't want to play new things. Like, I'm the one. They're like, I'm the ones playing new things. I want to play this new game and this new game. And they're like, why are you playing that? And he's like, well, because it's new. And it's just like, I want to play Portal Knight. It's like, there's no interest in the newest, latest thing. And that's that's kind of the game as a service model that these kids grew up in. Like, you get committed and invested in this one thing, and that's what you do. That's your lifestyle game. And it seems like, in the rush to have this constant supply of revenue, a lot of the publishers forgot that means you're locking these people into playing one thing and never giving you money for anything else again. Like, at some point, someone forgot to remind the executives that, like, time is finite, and people can't just spend all day, every day, playing your 4 different infinite games as a service. They're going to pick one And once you get so invested, they're never going to leave it. Just like how I would never switch to Android because I have way too much money sunk into buying apps and things on my iPhone. Like, that's like, you're not going to drag that kid away from Fortnite because he's not going to have his skins. And, you know, bravo to Epic for figuring out a way to basically lock these people in forever. You know, like, I've seen a lot of stuff where people are like, the tragedy of Fortnite now and like the success of the Deadpool movie is like so many of these kids and so many of these people that love they can never have this skin because, you know, it was, you know, Captain America is gone now because it was for that 1 week or whatever, that one season, and now you can't get it anymore, and that's it. And like, people, because of that phenomenon, people like won't let that game go. They're like, I can't play another game. I wouldn't be able to dress as Spider-Man, you know, like that is actually a thing I've heard. And it's like, you can't, and so like, you've drastically limited the market for kind of anything at that point, let alone console games. And like,
Matt, it
that's
feels
not
like
even factoring in the mobile game thing where people just want to pull out their phone and look at something dumb for 5 minutes. Like,
it feels like the new game that we used to get hyped about, and we'd call Blockbuster and be like, can you please hold it for me in case somebody gets there before me? Like that whole thing that we went through. It feels like that now for the young kids. It's the DLC drop. It's the new cosmetics. It's Captain America in Fortnite. And to your point, Fortnite is great at that. Like, I can't even keep up with all the crossovers that happen in Fortnite on a monthly basis. Like, there's like 6 a month. Like, every 4 days, there's some new skin, new character, new cosmetics, or a battle pass. Like, again, Epic is really good at figuring out the psychology of these tween kids.
And they're so good at it that it's infiltrated other markets. And other games try to do it. Non-video games do it.
We're about to talk about
Magic the Gathering does that. Like, Magic the Gathering's bread and butter at this point is called Universes Beyond, and it's just other IP. Just sets based on other IP. And like, there's some people that hate it because it's not Magic. You know, there's a Fallout set. There's a, you know, Warhammer set. There's they're about to do 2 years of Marvel sets, and like, there's people in the hobby that are like panicking about it because they don't want to. They want to look at Magic. They don't want to look at these other, you know, brands. And like, people get upset if you play like a fucking like Lord of the Rings card instead of the normal version or so. It's weird. But it works. That's the reason it keeps happening. Is it works. Like, people come back in. You know, like, my attention. They got my attention when Fallout came in, when Assassin's Creed came in. I bought the Assassin's Creed thing. Because I'm like, oh, cool. Assassin's plays fucking Ezio. That's great. And like, that's from Fortnite. It is. That whole that viability of that idea, the idea that doesn't weaken your IP, it strengthens it. That's from Fortnite.
It's also been a revelation to watch not just gaming companies, but all companies be okay with allowing their IP to go to these other places where they are no longer in control. That was a thing that a lot of brands and companies were completely averse to for decades and decades.
Because remember, once you commit Wolverine to Fortnite, you know, maybe that promotion only lasts 1 season or whatever, but you have now committed Wolverine to performing every dance and emote that ever gets invented for Fortnite for the rest
in perpetuity.
Of Fortnite. And like, that's a big leap.
And they're okay with it now.
Yeah.
Which they never were before, and that's been a big paradigm shift.
Like, the idea that you know, that you can make Geralt do the gritty is like, that's just part of the deal, and it doesn't hurt the brand.
I do feel like you're right, though, in that the publishers unwittingly have shot themselves in the foot. That they're chasing this dragon of revenue that constantly turns over while just having to maintain this one game, but they've forgotten the idea of the element of surprise and how.
Well, they've also forgotten, like, in the end, the game as a service model is, the purpose of it is to lock a certain number of people in to constantly spending a certain amount of money on your game. It is literally the antithesis of the infinite growth myth. Like, you are basically saying, we want this guaranteed source of revenue at all times, rather than the big bumps that come from releasing the newest hottest thing. But they still want the line to go up forever
without the thing that normally will make it.
Destiny 2 is never going to. Destiny 2 is like a really reliable blue chip stock. It's never going to make you extra.
It's going to go up like 5% a year.
But it's always going to be there. It's always going to be a reliable source. But it's never going to make you any
rich.
It's never going to be something to run out in the streets and brag about. And that's what the shareholders want to see. And when they seem to be realizing, oh, these you get a bump from when they launch, like Helldivers 2, like big spike from that thing launch.
Yeah.
But 1 out of 10 of these things gets that, then fewer than that sustain, and then once they sustain, you're never getting that big spike again.
Yeah.
Not to that degree, not to that, you're never going to get that launch spike again. And it's like they, shooting themselves in the foot is really what happened. Not in the sense of like they're going to fail, but it's like they've set themselves up to be disappointed by their own unrealistic expectations by the nature of the model they've decided to adhere to.
And it all trickles down to the rest of the industry, to us.
Right.
Because our business is talking about those spiky games, the games that like people get really excited about. They're big hits. They're here for 3 months and they're gone.
And if that's not there, we got to do stuff like you trying to play Final Fantasy 14.
Pretty much.
Look how that went.
No, you're right. It's true. Yeah.
Here we are.
And some of the games that we had to play for this week's show as well. So it all matters. Like all the stuff that happens at the top that you think, this doesn't affect Shane and Matt and the people at SIFTD or the people at Game Info. It all matters because that's where all the money starts. It all starts there. And if the publishers aren't making money, then they're not advertising on websites like IGN and they're not advertising in Game Informer magazine. It all matters. It all trickles down ultimately. And we're just in a bad spot. The other thing too, Matt, is that one, we're in a horrible drought. It's been a bad year for game releases, and it's the summer, which is always rough.
Yeah. Well,
so in this year, summer is particularly burly for whatever reason.
I saw an article on, was it NPR or something? It was an article where it was like the top 25 games of the year, and they mixed board games in with it. And I've never seen that before.
Because they had to.
Yeah, because there's nothing else to
well, Matt,
throw in.
When I promoted GameFace last week on YouTube and even on SIFTD, like one of the headline topics was Comic-Con and Dr. Doom. We've never done that. We have never had a pop culture related story in the title for GameFace. There's always been enough games content to fill out the title because we usually choose 3 things from the show to put in there. We've never had to have the third thing be something like movie or TV related ever until last week.
At least Doom kind of has a game connection.
Right. And look, our audience, there's a huge spillover between those two audiences, no doubt about it. So no one cares. Nobody was like, what? Why are you talking about Dr. Doom on GameFace? Not one comment asked that. I mean, which is cool because I think the audiences definitely flow into one another. So
yeah, and if they do, it's just like, well, Doom's like one of the top 3 characters in Marvel vs. Capcom, so
right, there you go. Yeah, there's at least some connective tissue there.
Gamers know Dr. Doom better than most of the mainstream audience, I would think, and even if they're not comic book fans.
Actually, you're right. That's a good point. Let's see what you guys are saying now that Matt and I have discussed this for a little bit. Contano says, Game Informer dying also hurt BioWare. A ton of exclusive reveals a cover and an interview were supposed to appear in Game Informer in the coming months, and now that's dead. Yeah, I mean, this always happens with game publications, but they had people on the road working when they were laid off.
Yep.
They're in a hotel somewhere in some other city. Someone had to call and be like, you lost your job.
Yeah, and a couple more stuff. It's like, how would I get home?
Yeah. Be glad that we're going to pay for your airfare home if you're lucky.
Sometimes that doesn't happen.
You're right. Sometimes it doesn't. Mighty Pony Girl, I've been going to GameStop these last few weeks to try and get the new Dragon Age issue, and they haven't had it. Yeah, that was a good sign that there was something going on. Nightwing 3060, always loved their covers of their magazines. They always did have great covers, for sure. Yeah. Yep.
The cover game, when at the height of the game magazine era, like the cover game was out of control.
It was on point.
It was crazy.
Next Gen Magazine was pretty good with their covers, too, back in the day.
Next Gen was pretty good.
Cinetyke says he's never read or watched Game Informer, but I'm in Portugal. I mean, you probably have because we curate their content to SIFTD. So you may not have realized it, but you actually probably have watched some of their content. Mighty Pony Girl, practice saying I used to be a Democrat, but then they lost my vote by being too woke. I don't even know what that means.
What was it? Who said that?
Mighty Pony Girl.
Oh, that's when I was saying like we have to sell out to make money. You got to sell out for the right wing grifters.
Oh, gotcha.
She's making fun of them.
Oh, okay. East Demon, I'd rather watch 20 or 30 minute stream of a game than a bunch of opinion pieces. To be honest, interesting. I would not.
I think that's a pretty prevalent thing.
I'm sure. I'm the outlier there. I don't like watching other people play games. I want to play the games. Cinetyke says definitely I feel teens and young adults now don't care about games journalism. They watch streamers. Yeah.
To a lot of the younger kids, I think, and probably
we're old. We're old men.
But also a lot of, people. I've seen a lot of the people like seek out streams where the people don't talk.
don't talk.
They just want to see the game.
Yeah.
And they feel like they can make a judgment about the game for themselves by watching it.
Matt, that is the only way I will watch a game being played is if the person says nothing. As soon as a person says anything, I'm out.
I don't mind saying something, but like, I mean, I can't remember the last time I watched a video game stream.
Me either.
It doesn't.
Me either. It's not my thing.
I don't have patience for that. I don't have patience. Even board game stuff, I try to watch something. There are some channels I simply will not watch because they just babble too much.
But I think they all do. Vincent says, taking that to the extreme, why should companies make new games at all? We're getting close to that point where it's either the tiny games with no budget or the giant quad A games with infinite content and or crazy production values that all succeed. I mean, it's hard to argue with anything he said there.
Yeah, well, it won't be that hard to argue with it once the quad A stuff sort of stops returning investment, and you have to sort of break it up and start shotgun effecting again. It's a cycle, and either the big publishers pivot properly and adjust in time, or they don't, and they're going to have to deal with the consequences. And most people who deal with the consequences are going to be people that had no say in those decisions in the first place. But I don't know. Like, it's not. I think the industry has come pretty close to a crash of some kind. I don't think anything will ever match the American crash of '83, where literally there were no video games on store shelves in this country. It went away.
I do feel like we're closer than we've ever been since the '80s to something like that happening. I don't think it will ever happen.
I don't think something like that would happen because the indie game market's is pretty much bulletproof in that regard. But I do think the AAA world is going to experience a major shift, a major maybe contraction, or at least a big pivot in the next few years. Certainly, as we're entering the ostensible next generation,
it's going through some things.
And I think the window there is really going to be the window between the new Switch coming out and the next Sony and Microsoft consoles, because they're going to see how the Switch does. Probably pretty well, and then kind of have to evaluate what they're about to do. And I feel like if you have any self-awareness as a corporation left, there's going to have to be a couple of come-to-Jesus meetings there in terms of how you're approaching
They should be having them now.
They should, but I don't think they are.
Yeah. Squishy Muffin says, speaking of money, apparently Twitch isn't profitable.
Yeah, what is?
Yeah. Big Smoke 82, you guys have hit the nail on the head. It's an age thing. Plus, games as a service taking over, and the complete lack of good games has it going down as one of the worst.
Yeah, again, I don't think there's a lack of good games. I think some of my favorite games of all time have come out in the last 10 years. But,
there's just not as many.
There's not as many. Well, there's not. Again, there's not as many games. Period. Maybe unless you're counting every indie thing that we go to itch.io. Like, sure, there's thousands.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think we forget how much garbage was there every generation. Always.
Yeah, it's always been there.
I mean, you can post all the pictures of Gen Z kids could never understand. It's a picture of like a game, like a rental store, and also there's a picture of Deadpool. I don't know if you've seen that picture. It's been floating around viral. It's a picture of a big rental store with movies and games on the shelves and everything. It's like Gen Z would never understand. But there's a picture, a poster for Deadpool 2 on the back wall. So it's like that picture is 5 years old maximum.
That's funny.
But like, I remember standing in front of the NES section at Blockbuster, and it was just row after row after row of uninspired Mario clone 2D platformer nonsense. And like you couldn't cut through it. And like if you go back to, I have gone back and read some of those old game magazines from that era, and the letter section is just people talking about how the game industry is going to crash again because there's no inventiveness, there's no innovation.
It's the same thing.
The same thing over and over again. Mario ruined video games. Nintendo ruined video games because everybody just wants to make Mario now.
Yeah.
And like we're all going to pay for it because there's nothing for flight sim people anymore. And it's just like,
I mean, people always overreact.
Right.
But I feel like we're pretty even keeled.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
Right, but that's also why I'm not reacting that way. Like I don't think that everyone. I see that pretty regularly. It's like, oh, this is the worst time for games. It's not.
Oh, ever, definitely not. No,
absolutely.
I do think there's a bunch of red flags right now, though.
There are red flags for the business, but if you're just someone who doesn't care about the business and just playing,
wants
stuff,
to play
I think
games,
it's great.
Yeah,
I think it's a good time.
Talimper, thank you for Twitch Prime. We appreciate it, man. I saw Listev Ed came in and dropped some subs for you guys in our chat. As always, thank you, Listev Ed.
And Vincent's right. Journalism in and of itself is dying. It's not like video game coverage is the only canary here. It's like you can't get actual journalism done anywhere.
I think the problem is for-profit journalism.
For-profit journalism is the fact that 3 companies own all of the outlets.
All the media outlets,
and one of the only people with any balls right now in that space is John Oliver. Mm-hmm. John Oliver's show is tackling subjects that like literally real hard news programs won't touch.
Yeah.
And they're a comedy show.
Yeah.
Ostensibly. They're not very funny.
Well, the problem with
because they're dealing with such depressing issues.
Right.
But like, you know, he did his go look up his last episode from like he touched some stuff that I don't think I've ever seen a mainstream.
I mean, he's
TV
been doing that for
touch.
a long time.
Oh yeah, but this is he's playing with some real fire on this one.
Yeah.
And you can tell he knows it because he didn't do any weird just stunts this time.
The problem with for-profit journalism is that you need to make money. And so you're going to do things that's going to get people to interact with your content. Whether there's journalistic integrity involved or not, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you're getting people angry and engaged, and so you have a press that is antagonizing its readership.
And that's why, of course, that so many of the for-profit, especially the further right ones, push the narrative on things like NPR and, of all things, the Associated Press or Reuters being biased and whatever because they're states, either they're state funded or they're viewer funded. They aren't for profit, so they don't need to play that game. And
they can report the straight news,
right? And the for-profit outlets don't want that to be out there.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Anyway,
it goes.
You're right, Vincent. Is what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Journalism is going down the toilet right now. It's really sad. It really hurts my heart.
And
honestly.
I mean, again, you know, there is probably something to be said for some kind of movement to save or prop up or promote proper, you know, real, you know, old school journalism. And if I'm honest, video game journalism is about 4,933 on the list.
Oh, I know.
Like it's just
I know.
not.
That's the sad truth, really.
You know, it's one.
Unfortunately, that's the industry that I chose to cover.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like you and I have always been very open about the fact that what we do is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Look, here's the thing: is like, I still feel very lucky to be doing what I'm doing right now. I mean, I keep seeing these outlets go out of business, and I'm like, we're still here. Like, I'm not making hardly any money. I'm barely surviving, but I'm still doing what I love. And there's a lot of people out there right now who can't do that.
No,
so
you're coming up on hitting 10 years of a private business like that. Most private businesses don't last
make a year.
70% don't make it a year.
Yeah. So anyway, there's some things to celebrate, even though I'm struggling. Let's move on. We kind of actually segued.
Well, so Sony, Shane. I don't know if you saw.
It really feels like they're struggling. We kind of segued.
Mere billions. I don't.
We kind of segued into this next topic organically from the last one, and this is probably the biggest story of the week. At least it was the story that generated the most discussion on SIFTD this week, and that is that there were massive layoffs at Bungie this week. They laid off 220 people, which is a big chunk of their company. A lot of stuff has come out. Jason Schreier did sort of an expose about it that kind of dug a little deeper into what's going on. And basically, I guess the Crib Notes version of this is that, one, Bungie kind of misrepresented itself to PlayStation when they were purchased and made PlayStation believe that it was capable of doing a bunch of stuff that it ended up being incapable of doing, one. Number two, Destiny 2 is dying. Mm-hmm. Number three, there was a CEO there who... And this is one thing that I don't necessarily agree with the public outrage over. There was a CEO there who was making a lot of money, like most leaders do, and he was spending his money on classic cars. And after this all went down, suddenly everybody's angry at him for spending his money on classic cars.
Well, he's just sort of it's emblematic of how the people at the top who make these decisions that fail and screw up, and they're never punished for it.
They're not the ones who lose their jobs.
Consequences for it. That guy still has all his money. He still has all his classic cars, and everybody who has to live with the consequences of what he chose to do and the other people on his level chose to do, they don't get any of that.
I'm not comfortable ever criticizing somebody for how they spend their money.
I'm fine with it. Like
unless they're funding Nazis,
sure,
and things like that.
But I don't see a lot of, you know, I don't think anybody's expecting him to just take all those millions and throw them back at the employees. It's just he is being held up as sort of an icon of what's wrong here, of how lopsided things have gotten and how ridiculous it is that someone who could actually have had a say. I don't think we know exactly what role he played in all these, but someone could have actually had a say in the misrepresentation of Bungie to Sony, and therefore being directly, partially responsible for what's happening to these 220 people who got laid off. Well, he still gets to have his nice cars and his big house and all this shit, doesn't he? But what happens to him? Nothing. Is he going to get his salary cut? No. Maybe he's going to make less of a bonus? Probably not.
I mean, he may lose his job eventually.
Maybe, but like probably not until everybody does. And when he does, he's going to get paid out.
Because what they do is they'll use him to figure out who they should lay off, and then he picks the people that should be laid off, and then they lay him off because he's no longer useful and they don't want him there anymore.
Yeah, but what's his severance package? Golden parachute.
I mean, probably the same, but since he's getting paid more, it's going to be more.
Well, he's probably got stock. He's probably got
he got RSUs probably. Yeah, because maybe. Who knows? I don't know how those Japanese companies work, all that stuff. It may be different from U.S. companies.
Well, I imagine if you're at Bungie for that long, you got something in Bungie anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, my guess is when they bought Bungie, he got paid out. But so did a lot of those people that were just laid off. Everybody at Bungie, they got paid out a lot, actually. Pachter figured it out one time, and it blew my mind how much the average rank-and-file employee got when Bungie was purchased. It was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, each employee. So look, they've all reaped the benefits. The truth of the matter is someone's always going to be the boss. Someone's always going to be the worker. I've been the boss. I've been the worker. I'm the worker now and now I'm both. That's the funny part. Yeah, but that's just the way it is.
You can argue that selling out to Sony got everybody paid and kept Bungie alive longer than it might have otherwise been.
Because that was the other thing that came out, is that people were like, we were insolvent. And if PlayStation had not purchased Bungie probably would have went out of business. But to be fair, if you're one of the employees at Bungie at that point, you can start over then and start finding other jobs. Now there's a difference. Now the carpet's yanked out from underneath you. There's a lot more competition out there for these jobs now because so many people have been laid off. So look, you can dive into this stuff for hours and kind of look at all the different angles of it. But the bottom line is that Bungie has not been very successful. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Destiny has not been successful. Bungie's not been successful. Now they're trying to spin off Bungie into this other, smaller studio inside PlayStation.
Yeah, breaking away from Activision seems to have proven to be a mistake.
Or we wondered why Activision let Bungie go. Right. Remember that? We were like, why would you do that when you have this cash cow that's just generating money? Well, Activision, as it turns out, knew the numbers and was like, this actually isn't working out as we thought it was. I mean,
it's weird that they have remained so steadfast to this. Like, it feels like there was probably, if this was really how things were looking for so long, it feels like there was a time to pivot and maybe kind of do a Halo thing again. Maybe don't lean so hard into the, like I said, I'm sure Destiny makes a certain baseline amount of money, but that doesn't seem to be enough to sustain the studio required to make it. So at some point, don't you just be like, okay, maybe we should go back to our bread and butter at some point? And maybe not, because you're looking at Halo, and Halo's not doing great either.
Right.
So what do you do?
Well, the other thing, too, is that Bungie had created this other team that was working on a spin-off of Destiny that was more of a traditional, single-player-focused game, although it was also going to be a game as a service, shocker. And Luke Smith was working on that game. Do you remember him, Matt? He was the first ever games journalist to jump the line and go work for a developer or a publisher. He worked at IGN, and one day he just went on IGN and was like, I'm leaving, and I'm going to go work at Bungie. And everybody was like, oh, my God, a journalist jumped over the line, and they're going to work for, not the enemy, but, I mean, typically as a journalist, you should not aspire to work for a publisher or a developer. Yeah, and since he did that, it just became normal.
Yeah, I mean, people did work. I mean, tons of people did game reviews back in the day, also wrote strategy guides, official things, and stuff like that. So yeah, he's the first one I can remember that really went to work kind of rank and file under as a full-time employee.
He was the first high-profile one. There may be some other person who became a community manager or something.
Probably other people back in the day.
He's the one that we all know of anyway, and he was let go in this because he was working on that new spin-off, and I guess they just let go of that whole team. Although that seems like what they should be doing. It feels like that team is the one you probably should.
But if you don't have the money to finish that project, you don't have the money to finish that project.
Well, I mean, it's all Sony now. Yeah. Either Sony's going to fund it or it's not. I'm just arguing maybe Sony should have funded that and maybe stopped Destiny 2.
I think we're at the point where we talked about when Sony first announced those 10 games as a service. It's like you are going to hit a point about halfway through that where you realize this isn't going to work and you're going to need to completely reevaluate what you're doing moving forward. And I think we're about to hit that.
I think we've kind of hit it. Yeah. They also said that Destiny 3...
It's so weird that I recognize every single place in this footage.
Yeah. Because you go to it so many times.
I played this game so much.
Yeah. This footage is from 2019 or something. It's old.
Time ago.
Yeah, this is old B-roll. They also said that Destiny 3 is now on a hiatus, and they're going to...
I saw other things that Destiny 3 was never in development.
Oh, it's never in development?
No.
Oh, really? So are we?
I believe
think we're ever getting to Destiny 3?
No.
I don't think we are either. They also said they're going to get rid of how they handle the DLC or the post-launch support for Destiny 2. Or they're getting rid of like these big milestone expansion packs, and they're going to be more granular.
They don't sell.
Yeah.
And because they're fucking overpriced. They don't sell because you're charging almost a full game price for them. Like, it's ridiculous. What was it? The final whatever thing just came out? Like, it's shocking.
The final shape.
Yeah, it's shocking how much that cost.
Yeah. It kept me from buying it and playing it. I was like, it's not an impulse buy. DLC should be an impulse buy. Expansions should be an impulse buy.
Yeah, once you cross the $20 threshold, you're sort of like, okay, what is this?
Yeah, then you start thinking about it. It's not impulse.
You got rare thing, like Phantom Liberty was the rare kind of DLC that crossed that line, and I was like, nope, that was worth it.
Yeah,
that was. I feel okay paying the original retail cost for that DLC.
Yeah,
it helped that they also revamped the game into something vastly better for free at the same time.
Yeah.
So buying Phantom Liberty almost felt like rewarding them for that.
Right.
But,
and then what happens with Marathon? They're Bungie's other game that is working
I think Marathon's far enough along you still got to let it happen.
Got to finish it.
But, like, who knows?
It almost feels like Bungie may be gone in 2 years.
Maybe.
It really does. So we'll see. But, again, more layoffs in the industry. Vincent says there was a third-person Destiny spinoff. That's what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the one that Luke Smith was working on.
As far as I know, as far as I understand, Destiny 3 was never seriously in any kind of even pre-production. Really, it was pretty early on decided that Destiny 3, whatever it was, the ideas for it were going to have to be part of Destiny 2.
Erebus Jones says, having tried several times, Destiny is just too complicated for a new player to get into. The hub they start you in is overwhelming. Yeah. A lot of these games are like that.
I mean, I've logged into it a couple of times in the last several years just to kind of see. But I've played hundreds of hours of Destiny and Destiny 2, and I don't know what I'm looking at.
Neither. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Mike Q says they explicitly said that those who are left will be only Destiny and Marathon. Okay, so that means Marathon is going forward. Yeah. Retro Modern Gamer says Sony could have Bungie work on Killzone or Resistance if it's worth it. I mean, those properties feel like they're dead.
Yeah, I don't think Sony really has any interest in going back to those.
Yeah.
They don't even seem to have much interest in repackaging them.
No, they don't. So anyway, major stuff going on at Bungie and at PlayStation. The 10 game as a service decree from PlayStation is starting to look like it's backed them into a corner at this point. But we'll see. Next up, every week somehow we talk about Star Wars Outlaws, and here we are to do it again. They announced the post-launch support for Star Wars Outlaws yesterday.
Yeah, it's about time for that.
Yep. Game's coming out in a couple weeks, 3 weeks roughly.
Ubi does like to lay out a roadmap.
Yep.
I don't know why people get so shocked every time it happens. Like, people were mad when like Avatar game had like DLC announced like 3 weeks before it came out. They were mad that when like Mirage had deal. I was like, this is what they do.
That's how it is.
Finish the game before. It's like the same people who are finishing the game are not the ones making the DLC. Like
it's the old argument of
that's why there's 700 people in the credits.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the old argument of if they're announcing this now, it should be a part of the base game.
No, yeah, it's just not.
That's not how it works anymore. And I kind of agree with it on sentiment, but that's just not how the industry works anymore. It's just not.
It never was.
And so the post-launch support for Star Wars Outlaws, it has a $40 season pass. With that $40, and I mean that's pretty steep. With that season pass, you get 2 paid story expansions. The first one is coming this year. The second one is coming in spring 2025. So you can buy the season pass and get it for $40, or you can buy both of those expansions a la carte, meaning separately by themselves. The first one is called Wild Card, and it follows Kay as she infiltrates a high-stakes sabacc tournament. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is called A Pirate's Fortune, and there Kay comes face-to-face with Hondo Onaka.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry?
I said, oh, good.
Yeah.
That's a good
Is that
character.
a good crossover?
Yeah, Hondo's a very, very loved character. He's
a pirate.
Yeah, you've been to Disneyland, right?
I have, but not to the Star Wars stuff yet. No,
okay.
I still haven't gone.
He's the host of the Millennium Falcon. Right?
Okay.
He came out and she showed up in Clone Wars and has been a kind of a fan favorite supporting character ever since.
Okay. How do you feel about all that stuff, Matt? $40 for 2 story expansions.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's expected.
Seems to be about the going rate for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in the second one than the first one. Like the first, I mean, I'm sure the first one's going to be sort of like a Casino Royale.
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Sabacc is not a very interesting game,
right?
For the most part. But what I mean, it fits. Like, I was kind of hoping we would see the Black Sun, although maybe the Black Sun will be involved in one of those. Who knows? I mean, Black Sun does seem like something Hondo would get in the mixed up with. So maybe there will be Black Sun stuff. Sure. Why not? I hope. I mean, I know I didn't notice until this last week that the first DLC for Avatar came out, and
it did.
Story expansion.
I didn't know that.
I don't even remember when, but I had I got the mine was the Ultimate Edition or whatever. And so I already had it, and I went, and I'm like, oh, yeah. And I can't play it. I'm like level 9, and you have to be level 18 to start it. And I'm like, oh, no.
That feels like a mistake.
That's going to be a while. I mean, Ubi, to their credit, does generally make these updates for people who have finished the game and have really, now here's something to play.
Yeah, you've mastered it.
On the higher level of things. But every once in a while, like they did it with Watch Dogs Legion too, and I'm like, oh, I can't play anything because I never finished Watch Dogs Legion.
Yeah, I mean, with that game, it's not going to work.
No.
I mean, I'm sure they had higher sales expectations than what Avatar delivered. They probably had to pay a pretty penny for that license as well, and that didn't work out either. So, I
did try to. I played a little bit of it like this week. I was like, okay, I'll try to get back into this, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I kind of expect this to be maybe in the same class as that. It's the same team, but it's like the same branch of Ubisoft's massive. I expect I'll care about this more because it's Star Wars and not Avatar.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I played Avatar for about 3 hours this week, and I was the whole time I'm like, why don't I like this more? It's Far
pretty
Cry.
good. Yeah,
it's pretty good. But
we did like it. We gave it a good review.
I did like it, but I just didn't. It didn't grab me again.
I think that's the problem for everybody. It didn't grab them. And to your point, you've been saying about Avatar all along, that IP hasn't grabbed people.
Right.
People go to it because they're supposed to go to it. It's the new technological paradigm.
It's a theme park ride.
Right.
It's like, no one. Why don't I remember the story of the character? Because no one's there for the story of the characters. They're there to experience, the ride.
Basically get immersed in the world.
And it does that.
It does. It's good at that.
Of course.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing is like that game is kind of the same, and it's weird that it doesn't really work the same way. It doesn't have maybe because like it's easier to sustain that feeling for 2 hours as opposed to 20.
Right. Yeah.
But,
it's pretty, but it also is very samey.
Yes. And like doing and also I was early when I was playing it when I first played it I was more into kind of doing the stealth thing and sneaking through the things and taking out the bases and activating the thing. And this time I just I don't remember how to do any of this shit, so I'm just gonna blow you all up, and that worked just fine.
Yeah, it
does.
Like,
I was just I did this in like half the time it would have taken me to sneak through this. Why am I fucking doing that? So after that was sort of like
Yeah. I haven't gone back, but I think I played a lot more of it.
It sure is pretty though.
It is beautiful. Yeah. So anyway. That's what's coming down the pike for Star Wars Outlaws after it launches. And don't forget, it is literally just a few weeks away here. It's coming August 30th. Yeah. So not much longer to wait. Finally, for one of the big games of 2024.
Yeah, I hope you like it.
I hope I do too, man. I'm really going to be devastated if I don't.
I think this is going to turn out to be one of my... I think I'm going to like it, but I do think this is going to turn out to be one of my worst first picks ever.
Oh, really?
I think it's going to get like an 80.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be that low.
I think it will.
Really?
I don't know.
I know the previews we talked about last week.
I'm not saying but I'm not saying I'm going to think it deserves it, but I think it's going to get I think it's going to get lowballed.
Wow, interesting. Here's an IP that I used to really love that now is not such a big deal. Battlefield. EA just had its financial report, and people were like, "What's going on with Battlefield?" The last game, 2042, was basically terrible and did terrible. I do feel a little bit like, maybe Battlefield is on the chopping block, but EA CEO...
I think all of EA is on the chopping block.
It feels a little bit like that. But EA CEO was like, oh, no. We're quadrupling down on the next Battlefield. He said that they have more people and more resources working on the next Battlefield than almost any other game in EA's history.
Okay.
I think it's worth it, though, Matt.
I mean, you got to make a big bet or slowly fade away at this point, so... Might as well.
I mean, this IP has an opportunity to generate crazy revenue for EA. I think it's the right move to double down on it instead of shying away from it.
Well, and I think you gotta have it positioned. You gotta take pull a parachute, dude. Jesus Christ. You gotta be in vulture position in case Microsoft does something weird with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
You gotta be ready if Microsoft a few years down the line actually does do the thing where they're like, you know what, Call of Duty is just gonna be on Xbox now. Mm-hmm. Call of Duty, you want Battlefield to be ready to swoop in and be like, well, then here we are. If you're up on PlayStation, you don't want to buy an Xbox, we got something just as good, if not better.
I also feel like
and you have to do a few good ones in order to be able to believably claim that. So it makes sense that you'd want to be putting a whole lot of effort into a new Battlefield because you're laying that groundwork right now for that possible future 4 or 5 years down the line.
I also feel like those two properties are capable of having really bad entries and rebounding from them, unlike other properties. Like, there have been bad Battlefield games, there have been mediocre to bad Call of Duty games, but people are willing to forget about that stuff and come back and give it another go.
Yeah, they'll usually try it again. And also, like, sometimes it's funny to me how time dulls your memories and your perceptions
of the pain.
Of things. Where, like, I saw people, like, because I think in response to this announcement and this information, we're talking about older Battlefield games, and there were a bunch of things where people were posting the F-18 section of Battlefield 3 and saying, like, basically, like, they were saying basically that, like, DICE has always been, you know, the bleeding edge of tech because of how good it looks, but also there were people claiming, like, graphics haven't really progressed since this because this looks just as good as anything you can see today, which is partly true. I mean, that sequence does look really good, but, like, especially the take, like, they're showing the takeoff with all the smudging on the canopy and, like, all that glare and all. I mean, it looks really, really good, but the only thing I remember about that sequence is how fucking boring it was because you can't do anything through that whole. Like, the whole, it's basically an on-rails shooter. You can't even fly the plane. You're literally moving the crosshairs around and shooting stuff. And if you screw up, you got to wait through the whole fucking takeoff sequence again and do it again. And, like, I love planes. I love jet fighters. Like, I was waiting for a decent jet fighter sequence in one of those military shooter games forever, and it sucked. And I'm like, yeah, it's gorgeous. It looked like, and it's, you know, you can't argue with the tech on display, but that's one of the worst Battlefield missions ever. And that's saying something because Battlefield's campaign stuff has
typically
been
abysmal.
Not good.
That's being nice.
And it just was amazing to me. I'm like, oh, so we're doing that? Like, really? Like, we're trying to rehabilitate this shit now? Come on. It's like when people go back and it's like, you know what? That Elektra movie wasn't. No, it was. It was that bad. I mean, come on. I don't fucking care how much you love Jennifer Garner now. Stop it. Stop it. That movie sucked.
I also feel like Battlefield is a little bit like what Erebus Jones said about Destiny. It's if you jump into that game in the multiplayer, it is very intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
It's like flying the jets and the helicopters and that, they need to make them way more user-friendly. Like, I understand this franchise came from the PC, and it has this core of players that come from that PC environment. I'm actually one of them. But I'm also a console player. A lot of people have not. Like, I have an uncle and 3 nephews who have played Battlefield on PC for their entire lives. And that's where they play it. That's how they play it. I'm not like that. And they want the crazy, complicated controls because they feel like it gives them an edge. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I don't think you should be catering to that core group of old Battlefield guys and girls. They should be trying to get new people into the property.
You never cater to the keyboard.
Yeah. So I for one, I am still a fan of Battlefield. I will still give Battlefield another chance. I'm excited to hear that EA is like, you know what? Instead of, making the team smaller because it's not generating as much money as it used to. No. The capabilities of this franchise to generate revenue is something that we need to invest in.
Although I would two-prong it to sort of both as a sort of gap filler and to kind of learn what is working best with the modern audience, and that would be, yes, go all in on your new Battlefield and make it the craziest thing. But also, in addition to that, 4 words. Bad Company 2 Remastered.
Yeah, that'd be great, actually. I would be excited about that. I think a lot of people would be.
Because that is the second best Battlefield thing ever.
I agree. Yep.
Because nothing beats the Wake Island. I'm sorry, you peaked day one. Like there's nothing you can do about it. We're all gonna have to deal with it.
Yep. Okay. Next up, this story made it through the channels this week that there is a petition in Europe right now, and if it gets 1 million signatures, there could be a law passed that forces developers and publishers to keep video games alive forever.
That would solve the game as a service problem, wouldn't it?
And look, I love the sentiment behind this. Like, I think it's preserving the history of games. I totally get it. But there's a practical side of it, too. And I look at it from, like, the perspective of a developer or a publisher, and it's like, wait a minute, like, we're ready to move on. I get there may be a very small group of players who aren't ready to move on, but we are. And we want to work on new stuff. We want to publish new stuff. And they want to leave that old game behind and move on to these new projects. Like, I don't begrudge anyone for doing that. And what this would do is it would force them to at least sort of at the very least, pass off the game to the fans and let the fans do something with it. Which I guess if you don't care about the game anymore, would you care what the fans do to it? But if you're planning
you would if it's still your IP or making
right,
new games
and you plan on making a sequel
and what
later,
if it's a license thing, like,
right?
You know, like you can't do. What happens to Marvel Rivals at that point?
Right.
Like Marvel's never going to consent to that.
Yeah.
Like it's a really stupid, like you say, the heart's in the right place, but practically it's nonsense.
Yeah, I don't see how you can make anybody do this. This is like Elon Musk trying to say, if you don't advertise on Twitter. If this
got passed, basically what it would do is would kill a certain kind of game.
Yeah.
That's it.
They'd just stop making it.
They would just stop making licensed IP, online things. Online stuff would be basically
because who's going to pay for those licenses in perpetuity?
Well, who's going to leave? Like no one. Like Microsoft isn't going to let you have Halo as part of the community because. And in part, part of that might literally be because they're worried the community is going to make better stuff with it than they would.
It's true. Yeah.
Like that's not a unreal thing.
Yeah.
You know? But it's just not believable. It's like, and look, some things you buy and they don't last forever. And online games are like that. I have a sealed copy of the collector's edition of Tabula Rasa somewhere in the garage that can attest to that. It's literally not worth the cardboard it's printed on.
I have lots of PC games that are like that.
And I'll tell you, man, the thing that I think is the funniest thing about all this is the fact that it's coming out of the crew of all things is hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Like, and they're going.
A game that nobody cared about.
And
when
the petition's going on about like 12 million play. I'm like, okay, maybe 12 million people have logged into the crew in the history of the crew.
Yeah.
But how many people were playing it on the daily?
Nobody has ever bought the crew 12 million times.
No, it's.
Even if you compiled the sales for it, the franchise in general, it probably hasn't hit 12 million sales.
Yeah, so I can't see this really going anywhere because it's just gonna stifle. I mean, all you need to do to kill this is to just like be like, yeah, you're talking about stifling creativity to a ridiculous degree because everything you make has to live forever now. Mm-hmm. It means online stuff is
for 8 people.
Yeah,
like you have 8 people left playing this game, Knockout City.
Yeah.
You're going to go through the expense and the licensing and everything for the 8 people? No. Like, it's okay. Look, I understand.
Like, you want to patch, like, make it something so, like, you can patch in so, like, you can play the crew offline? Great. Like,
yeah.
Sure. Like, I think that should be done.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason not to do that. I mean, the reason is because you want people to buy the new crew game and not play the old one. But, like, you want to make it, like, a legal thing. Like, you have to be able to play the game in some respect? Sure. Like, you patch in some cheap-ass peer-to-peer shit on something that, like, barely works. Okay, like, you fulfilled the spirit, the letter of the law, if not the spirit, you know?
I mean, on a base level, what I don't like is you're telling private companies, private citizens, what to do.
I mean, that's what a law is.
It is, but it's ridiculous that there would be a law for something like this.
Well, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like a product is not, you're not obligated to support a product forever.
I guess what I should have said is you're telling them what to do creatively.
Well, you're not, though. I mean, you're locking them in, but that's an unintended consequence of this, you know?
But you are, because you're making them dedicate resources to something that they may want to dedicate somewhere else, which could keep them from creating something else.
Well, that's not a creative choice, though. Like, that wouldn't hold up in court. I think the thing you need to do, basically, you'd be like, well, if you're going to apply this to video games, you better go apply it to everything, and that's not feasible either. Like, you know, like. The thing is, like, there's a perceived maliciousness in shutting a game down so you can't play it anymore, right? Mm-hmm. But just some things are obsolete after a certain amount of time. Like, shutting the crew down is not the same thing as shutting down, like, say, a game that's only an hour. Like, if they shut down Suicide Squad tomorrow, like, that would be different. Because you probably bought that game last year or was it this year?
Last year, or was it?
Was it February?
I think it was this year. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like, you bought that with an assumption that this game was going to be playable for longer than, like, the time it takes to gestate a human.
Yeah.
And like if that's a problem, but like I think the crew lived long enough to fulfill the value that you laid out for it, be it $60 at launch or $10 at a sale at some point.
And licensed games are different. I mean, where you're licensing things, licensing all those
thing
cars
is a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's like you can't expect a company to pay for those licenses
is the
forever.
Crew real cars?
I think it is. Yeah.
I don't remember the Crew well enough to know if it's real cars.
I think it is. Yeah.
Forza runs the same thing, but Marvel stuff. Would I prefer? Is
this game?
That game. Well, this game isn't a license though, because they own it.
They own it. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about stuff like Marvel vs. Capcom,
where you actually have to pay some other company for the stuff,
or like what you call it. The most famous Marvel example is probably Ultimate Alliance. Which goes in and out of print every once in a while.
Actually, and they disappear.
Yeah.
Off of Steam and stuff like that because they don't want to keep paying the licenses. Grand Theft Auto with its music, its licensed music, have to keep paying for that. Like I think Grand Theft Auto Online, it has all kept tracks. I don't think it has licensed music in it.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, some of that's just because like you didn't foresee like there's when they made San Andreas, I don't think there was any way to know that how
it was going to all play out.
That it was going to play out. It's like if you're making that, even back then, you're making that game. The idea that anyone would give a shit about that game 20 years later is a little ridiculous at the time.
Even though it was huge when it came out.
I mean, nobody realized that, because think about 20 years before that is 1984.
Right. That's crazy.
And at the time, retro gaming was not really a thing in the mainstream commercial gaming industry. The idea that you'd want to play a game from 1984 just released as it was, but slightly better, and pay a real price for that on a modern system was alien.
I mean, there wasn't even really retro gaming because things were only 10 years old.
You had some Atari collections, you had some things, but like you just didn't. It wasn't a thing then.
No.
So the idea that you'd have to have those licenses and sometimes you just can't even get that for those.
They won't even sign it. Yeah.
It's like
the licensors are like, no.
You want. As long as you can get it, and that's the end of it. That happened with TV shows too.
It does. Yeah.
So like. Yes, I understand the frustration, but like the petition just the proposal on this law is just silly.
It is. And look, if they get 1 million signatures,
and but you know what the outcome of that is? Either the game doesn't get made or the game doesn't get released in Europe.
No, you're right. That's what'll happen.
Like
that will be
the
end
job,
result. Yeah. Congratulations.
Like I appreciate what they're after there, but there's a nuance there that has to play in, and maybe they will. I mean, you have to take that through a lot of committees or whatever. But like I don't know, like it just kind of silly. Like, Marvel doesn't have to sell me a replacement copy of X-Men 100 40 years later either. You know? Like it's they don't have to keep all that in print forever.
Again, it's placating a very small group of people.
Yeah, it's like to me, it's a little bit like it's not an exact thing, but it's like arguing that like Marvel and DC should have to keep all their issues and all their stories in constant print at all times in case someone wants to get into Superman and hasn't read any Superman comics. And it's like, it's not fair that I can't go back and read the entire run of Action Comics 1 through whatever. And
well, the other thing is, do we need the actual games? Like now there's footage of games everywhere. There's literally hours and hours of the crew on YouTube.
Well, also, I don't really believe that like the crew is in danger of not being preserved.
Right. I think Ubisoft's got it covered. Yeah. There's source code there. They know where it is. It's saved.
And I keep thinking about stuff that I played online that I really liked that like went away, like Earth and Beyond, which is another EA game nobody remembers. But
City of Heroes.
Yeah, although that is back now.
Yeah. With
the fan server. I mean, that's a valid thing to do. But again, your problem with that is when you run into IP.
Yeah, it was unlicensed. It weren't real superheroes. So.
Yeah, but like, should Earth and Beyond still exist somewhere for the 3 people who want to occasionally play it? Probably not. Like,
no.
That's an outlay of expense that doesn't make any sense.
That's just the way life is, man. You can't avoid life all the
time. I think if you're
buying
buying an online only game, you have to accept that is a temporary purchase.
And I think most people do, to be fair.
Seems like it.
Yeah. Next up, Marvel 1943. Remember that?
Yeah.
Game coming from Amy Hennig and Skydance. We still aren't quite 100% sure exactly how it plays. They haven't shown any raw gameplay from the game yet. There's a couple glimpses of it here in this trailer, although we're not even sure that that's gameplay.
This news seems to add a little bit of credence to your idea that it's a story-driven sort of Telltale-ish game.
Yeah, because we found out this week that the game is going to be published by a small publisher called Plyon. It's a little offshoot of Embracer. The games that it has published is like
is it Plyon or Playon?
Playon, I don't know.
Is that the pun there? Playon?
I don't know actually, but they publish a couple of games. One of them was like a crappy Supercross game. What I'm getting at is that this publisher does not have a lot of prestige, nor does it have a lot of resources to maybe promote this game and have commercials running during like NFL games where you might want to promote a Marvel game.
Right, but Marvel can help with that too.
That's true.
They're not going to be in here alone.
Yeah,
like, I mean, Marvel needs somebody to put the thing out and
right.
handle distribution. They don't necessarily need somebody to advertise it. Marvel can do that themselves.
That's a good point, actually.
Because I guarantee you get no matter what, you get ads for this all over, like the Disney XD or whatever they call the Disney XD stuff now. Disney's whatever their TV stuff and online stuff.
And Disney Plus, I'm sure there'll be ads all over that.
Yeah, I guess that's a big thing.
There'll probably be like an ad running before
They'll probably do
Marvel
behind
movies.
the scenes stuff with it. There's all those little featurettes that pop up on there.
Yeah.
Like Disney will handle the promotion on this, I'm sure, because it's their property. They want people to see it.
Well, bottom line is this is going to a small publisher, and I think you're right, Matt. I think it's a hint that this is not like a full-blown quad A action-adventure game.
Or it is, and Marvel's just trying different places that aren't going to tell them what to do. Like, if you're, because Marvel likes
for someone that
Marvel
can run
does
over.
like to micromanage a little bit. I know that like clearing things with Marvel is a problem, not as much of a problem as it is with Lucasfilm, but there is a possibility that it is a big actiony, whatever, big AAA thing.
We still don't know.
But Marvel knows that if they contract this nobody publisher, that publisher ain't going to fuck with them. Mm-hmm. They're going to do whatever they're told.
They'll roll over and say, whatever you say, master.
And you're probably going to have enough pushback from Amy already. So, that could be there, you know. So, but I do think it does lend... It tips the scale of speculation in favor of maybe this is just a narrative-driven...
Smaller game. Yeah. Which I'd be totally okay with because we don't really get these in the Marvel universe. Yeah, every Marvel game is a big budget game.
I mean, that would be an interesting experiment for a Marvel game.
Yeah. I'm actually, you know, it doesn't make
Maybe that's the way to do it.
You may be right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, not everything, you know, obviously Spider-Man's great and Wolverine looks good, you know, but maybe not everything needs to be that.
Yeah. I would be excited to see them make Marvel games more frequently than they do now.
Sure. And once you get this kind of down, it's probably not that pricey.
Oh, Amy and crew could just crank these out, man. And as long as you have good writers.
Like, hey, Amy, what you got for Daredevil? I'd like to see an Amy Hennig Daredevil story.
Or I could name a bunch of different properties I'd be interested in. So it may not be a bad thing, folks. Like that, this is not coming from like a big like
like a place and a template laid down for high quality Marvel narrative driven games is not a bad idea.
It's insane that it hasn't happened.
And of course, if you're going to have anyone spearhead that.
Amy. She's perfect for it. So I think when we saw this, everyone was like, oh no, like, does that mean it's going to be a crappy indie game? No, I don't think it is at all. It's just going to be different, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that's Marvel's 1943.
Even small publishers got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this makes them a player.
Still no release date for it, by the way. We still don't know when the game's coming. Not even a clue,
my guess
really.
would be next year sometime.
Yeah. It would have been nice to get it this
August
year.
2025. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. That makes as much sense as any other date.
Sure.
So anyway, that's the latest on Marvel 1943.
Maybe we'll see something at the Game Awards.
Yeah, it could be, actually. And Jeff has a pretty good relationship with Amy as well, so that could very well happen. Next up, we got the first gameplay of NBA 2K25. We don't talk about a lot of sports games here on GameFace, but this is one of those games that even if people don't care about basketball or sports video games, they want to see what the new NBA 2K looks like because it generally pushes the envelope on presentation big time. If you are concerned about what the actual game is going to be like this year, and I'm just showing this so you guys can see it. We like to be thorough here on GameFace. There's a big focus on the WNBA because, Matt, out of nowhere, the WNBA has exploded. Mm-hmm. There's that new player, Caitlin Collins or whatever her name is. And look, I still can't watch women's basketball. No offense. I'm glad there's a league for women, and I support women and anything they want to do.
It's a different game.
But I just can't, the competitive part of it, I just can't get into it. The players just aren't good enough for me to dedicate time to watching it.
Well, no, they are very good. They're exceptionally good. They just don't play. It's a different game than the men's game.
Yeah. I mean, I like to watch people dunk and...
Yeah, well, that's not what the women's game is.
Yeah.
It's two different takes on
It's dribbling and passing for the most part.
There's a lot more tactical work in women's basketball.
It's fundamentals, basically.
And to be honest, as I said before, I ran the scoreboard for the women's team, the girls' team in high school for a couple of years because I was that nerd. and they were the best high school girls team.
Yeah, you mentioned they were state champs, yeah.
And I have never cared about basketball. I don't give a shit about basketball for exactly the things you just said you like about it. I think it's all showboating. It's all nonsense. It's all ego. It's all bullshit.
Matt, I don't watch basketball either. And you want to know why I don't watch? Because I lived in Philly for 7 years, and I could literally walk outside of my apartment 30 feet.
And watch just as good basketball
Absolutely,
right there.
man. And actually better, more entertaining basketball because they didn't care about distributing the ball. They're like, I'm dunking and you can try to stop me. Like, it was better watching playground ball in Philly than watching
and
NBA basketball.
All the constant stopping and
all this BS that goes along with it.
It's like, let the kids play a game.
Yeah, me and my friends would just walk down and watch.
But I'll tell you, watching the girls play, in high school as well, I finally understood the tactical realities of basketball watching that. And I still don't really like basketball.
Yeah.
But that was the closest I ever came to liking basketball was when I was watching them play and understood. And it probably helped that I was friends with several of them. And I was invested in that way. In the same way that I'm not as invested in Evo as much anymore because I don't know
the people anymore.
I don't know anyone who's in the top 20 anymore.
It matters.
But
it's the human element for sure.
It's just a very different. That's actually what I'm most curious about on this game is do they capture that different way of playing the game? They
don't let the women just dunk or anything.
No, it wouldn't make any sense.
It's realistic.
Although I would love to see somebody do a modern NBA Jam where they did.
Yeah.
Where everybody just plays against everybody and it's all just crazy nonsense. That would be a lot of fun.
The crazy thing actually is that I feel like the WNBA actually has like better characters than the NBA.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they have villains and everything. There's already a villain for Caitlin Collins, this other rookie that hates her, and
there's a big WWE element to that.
That's a little bit of it, yeah. So anyway, that's the latest on NBA 2K. It's coming out in September, so it comes out next month. It's really funny how 2K can show that game for the first time a month before it comes out, and it still sells like hotcakes. People just know. And it's the only basketball game in town. There's no college basketball game anymore. NBA Live hasn't been released for years and years now and may never come back.
No NBA Jam forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Madden. It has the NBA license basically to itself. And so, people who are basketball fans are going to buy it every year.
Was NBA Jam just like a moment in time? Was that just...
Arcade sports games feel like a moment in time.
It was the shoulder
Arcade sports games in general feel like they were a moment in time. Now they're all indie games, basically.
Like the NBA Jam NFL Blitz thing was just like that particular.
It was just like that 8-year span. It seemed like it was big, and now they're all gone.
Same where I missed the cyberball stuff. Where that weird subgenre of like robots playing sports.
Right? Yeah, where you didn't want to pay for the license.
Super Baseball 2020, which is of course in the past now.
It's pretty funny to think about.
That kind of
all these games and movies that looked into the future. We're like past that now.
Yes,
it's really bizarre.
I mean, we're 5 years past Blade Runner.
I know, it's really crazy, and the world has not turned out like a lot of science fiction writers thought it was going to be.
We got all the corporate cyberpunk shit without any of the cool
fun stuff.
Where's my goddamn bionic eye?
Yep.
Tired of wearing the glasses. I thought I was going to be able to zoom in like a hawk.
Right.
By now.
Yeah. It hasn't happened yet.
I'm going to be able to do the Predator thing. Yeah.
Retro Modern
Where's
Gamer...
the cat? Infrared. There she is, behind the curtain.
Retro Modern Gamer says, was mad into those robot wars that would destroy each other.
Yeah, I watched some of them. My brother-in-law and my niece watched them more. But I have a 10-day live taping of Robot Wars, or BattleBots, rather.
Yeah. Vincent says there's an NBA Jam successor with the license, but it's exclusive to arcades. I have not heard about that.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't
hear about that at all. Mighty Pony Girl says there was a really good Smarty Pants where they pointed out that the WNBA has the added bonus of all the shipping.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
There is a lot more romantic tension in the WNBA.
That's true. Yep.
And that's something the men's NBA might want to think about incorporating.
Maybe someday.
What's LeBron's stats? Who does LeBron love?
Yeah.
there's your fucking question.
Seriously. Next up, something that Matt and I have been tracking for the last 2 decades, and it feels like every 18 months or so, the story resurfaces, and once again, here we are talking about Half-Life 3. There was a voice actor who has her own website. She went on her website and said that she was working on an unannounced Valve game and gave up basically the prototype name for the game. A bunch of Half-Life Valve fans went and started doing data mining, looking for the terminology that she used, and they found some of it, and they now believe that Half-Life 3, once again, is in fact in development.
But let's not forget that it's Valve, and this could all just go away.
And you're right. The truth of the matter is, it probably is in development, or was in development, and has been in development. That doesn't mean that the game is ever coming out.
My guess is there's been at least 3 Half-Life.
At least. That have all been shot down before they were ever released.
I'll believe this when it's installed on my computer.
Pretty much. Yeah. is the Cry Wolf thing.
Yeah, I'm fine. If Half-Life 3 never comes out, I'm fine with that.
I mean, I want to play Half-Life 3. Don't get me wrong. Or I wouldn't mind playing Half-Life 2 Episode 3. Is that what we're waiting for?
That would be the normal. Yeah, Episode 2 at a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Right, so.
How do you do that? It's just evil. It really is evil. And again, I think a big part of it is that I'm just protecting myself, Matt. I'm protecting my feelings. I don't want to get excited for something that's never going to happen.
I mean, I'll be honest, like Half-Life doesn't really matter to me.
Anymore, it doesn't?
Ever.
Really? It never did?
I mean, I like Half-Life. I thought, I was impressed by it when it first came out, and 2 was very, very, I'm very impressed by 2. 2, the physics and all that stuff was amazing. But I find it a fairly sterile game, and I have never really latched into it in any real way. It's more of a tech demo to me, and an important historical document, but it's not something that I go back to all the time. It's not something that I particularly care about or obsess about narratively. It's just a really important game that I really enjoyed at the time, and I'm kind of fine with it staying in the past if they don't feel like moving forward with it anymore.
The demo of
also
Half-Life 2.
Alyx is really cheap this week if anybody's actually doing the PSVR 2 connector thing.
Which, as it turns out, is not easy and a pain in the ass, and the controllers aren't working.
No shit.
Yeah.
How you color me surprised, but I'm just saying if you intend to put yourself through that, Half-Life Alyx is on sale this week because that would be the main reason to plug that in, I would think.
Yeah, I will always remember the demo of Half-Life 2 and the gravity gun that Gaben gave a group. I was there. There was probably like 15 people at a time that went into that little room on the show floor. Seeing that demo literally blew my freaking mind.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at that time, those types of physics were just not used in video games. And a weapon like that, too, is so out of the realm of reason at the time.
Yeah, it was a completely, same. And Silk Snake is asking, was Half-Life good or did it just do something new? I don't know if I can separate those two things with Half-Life 1.
Yeah. It was good, I thought, at the time.
Go back to it now and it's just sort of...
At the time, I said. Yeah.
But,
we're going to talk about some other at-the-time things later in the show.
But it's very hard to separate it because, one of the reasons it feels kind of pedestrian going back to it, even 5 or 6 years after it came out, was that everybody took from it. Mm-hmm. It was, it's like saying that Aliens is cliche because Aliens created those.
It started
cliches.
It all, yeah.
So yeah, it's hard. I think that's a hard question to answer, at least for me. Because so much of why it was good was why it was something I'd never seen before, and a way that no one had ever done it before. Mm-hmm. And then everybody did it that way. And it feels less special retroactively as a result.
I mean, Half-Life 2 is a better game.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I would say generally, yeah.
Not as innovative, but a better game. Well, actually, with the gravity gun, maybe it is just as innovative.
Gravity, I don't think it was as influential, but gravity, I mean,
the physics were.
The physics for sure. And we don't go to Ravenholm? Mm-hmm. That whole level is incredible. Just the tone shift and the way you're doing something completely different than you've been doing for the last hour and a half.
Atmosphere in these games also very, very good.
Atmosphere, and also you can't forget that atmosphere just wasn't a thing
right before this game.
In terms of narrative, I mean, you had atmosphere. I mean, obviously Quake has atmosphere, Doom has atmosphere, but that atmosphere is rawr.
It's goofy.
The atmosphere is metal, heavy metal cover.
Yeah.
This had it wasn't not necessarily thoughtful, but it had it was inspired by a Stephen King story.
Yeah.
It's hard to really describe how different. I mean, Half-Life came out the same month as Metal Gear Solid and Ocarina of Time.
Insane.
All three of those games came out in the span of 5 weeks. We were we didn't know what the fuck to do with ourselves.
I wonder if that were happen now, if the kids would play the 3 games. I don't think they would.
What else? What's left to do in that regard?
How would you even do that
basically,
today?
There were these 3 games that recodified how 3D works.
Yeah.
It was the first thing. They were the first thing.
I don't know about I think it literally codified.
The thing that codified how 3D works was Quake and Mario 64.
Yeah.
And these games sort of were the next step there.
Only 2 years later.
Yeah. And but it felt like forever.
It really did.
It felt like we've been waiting forever for 3D stuff to figure itself out, and here it was. And it's very hard to describe what it was like, and I understand. I think games get better and better. I think the games I'm playing now are as good or better than anything I've ever played in my life. But I totally understand when people go on about how nothing will ever be as good as 1998 because there was that that month where suddenly you played 3 things that revolutionized the entire medium.
We were babies.
All at once.
Yeah, the industry
you're never
was a baby.
getting that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get it.
I agree with you.
And Half-Life's one of those things. And Half-Life had an extra little bit of elitism to it because you had to have a PC that
to
could
play
run it.
and a Voodoo 2 card.
Yeah, you had to be...
You had to have some money.
You had to be some real shit. And
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, you're playing Metal Gear? I mean, it's cute and all.
Yeah, but
the characters in my game have eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do that with Tribes too. Like people would be, people would come
yeah.
over and watch me play Tribes. Their minds would be blown.
Yeah.
They're just like,
Yeah.
how do games look like that?
Well, if all you're used
and
to,
now it looks so terrible.
Well, if all you're used to is GoldenEye, you're like, oh my god, things can move that fast.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you know,
And
like,
fly.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you think Half-Life 3 is really in development right now and really coming, Matt, or no?
I think it is in development. I think it's been in development since 2005 or so.
Yeah.
I just don't think it matters until it's out.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to go. I've been hurt too many times. Next up.
You never get your hopes up with Valve because then they're just going to announce Artifact and you're all just going to be sad.
Or another card battling game.
Yeah, Artifact.
Yep. A little bit of bad news for you this week in your fantasy team, although I do think our fantasy league is over at this point. It looks like I'm going to be not going to have a full team, maybe not even have 2 games.
Yeah, something pretty drastic would have to happen for me to not
win.
Well, at least for me to not have no zeros.
Right. And which means you will win because I'm going to have at least 1.
You are going to have 1-0, yeah.
Yeah, because I have the Plucky Squire and I have Hollow Knight.
You have 2 zeros.
Yeah.
You have that. You have Hollow Knight, and you have something else, and then Plucky Squire is probably your 3rd zero.
It's the one I'm going to get a 0 for. Yeah.
I can't remember what your other one is.
I don't know. They just showed some footage of Plucky Squire like 2 weeks ago. It gave me a faint.
But they still won't say when it's coming. They just keep saying 2024, and you're getting to that. It's sort of like what Space Marine did last year. There's a point where you start to hit September, and you're like,
probably not happening. Yeah, I'm not confident. I think I lost. But anyway, a faint glimmer of hope for me was presented this week because Avowed.
Metroid Prime 4 is your other 0.
Right, yeah. And that's a definite 0. Avowed was delayed. And the reasoning for Avowed being delayed, according to Microsoft, was that its schedule was too crowded. We've gone how many years without having any sort of crowded anything from Microsoft and Xbox?
And like the thing is, they're right. Like there is a lot coming. I don't know if a lot of
But not from them.
Well, yeah, there's a lot from them. Fair amount.
Like what?
I can't remember. I saw a list of it, and there is actually a lot of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Coming first party from Xbox?
First and second, yeah, whatever you want to call the stuff.
Wow, so there's Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, which seems like, I guess it is. I thought that was
That may get delayed, too.
Well, I thought that was going to slip.
Yeah.
But I guess they seem to be sticking to their guns on it.
Yeah.
I would have thought that would slip before this slipped, frankly. Not that I don't really have a preference on which one slips there. I guess because this is one of my alternates, so it doesn't really matter.
Stalker 2.
Stalker 2, I hope.
Which we thought that might get delayed out of the year too.
Same. Stalker 2 is one of my. If Stalker 2 loses, then I get a 0.
Then it gets interesting. At least,
because,
at least then we have to add up
because
the scores.
I've already lost. I've already lost one. One slipped out.
Yeah.
One game. I think. I think I lost one game. And I get... Oh, no, maybe I didn't.
I don't know if you did,
No, I don't think I did. If one slips out, I get Helldivers, which is an 82, which would be great. So if Stalker does want to slip, go for it. Or Stalker 2 might be my best last pick ever.
Yeah.
Because that could rate real well.
It could, yeah. And then there's Flight Sim 2024.
Yeah, you have that one.
Yeah, I do. But those aren't like games that would like Avowed would step on their toes. Like,
no, but like Microsoft doesn't seem to be making a distinction between.
I think it's just not done. I just think it needs more work.
There might be some of that, but that's not a very big delay for something that's not done.
3 months.
3 months is not enough to fix that. Really.
You can polish some stuff.
Polish, but like where's Obsidian?
Yeah.
Polish and Obsidian are not really.
I mean, look, they could have just found like a terminal bug. And they're just like, you know what? We can fix it in like a month or two. Like, how about we just delay this sucker into next year?
Somewhat, but you've got Call of Duty, Indiana Jones, Flight Simulator, Age of Mythology, Stalker 2, Ara History Untold. That's on their schedule in there. There's a lot in there.
Not a lot though that would really cross over with the Avowed's audience.
No, but I don't think that matters. I think they're also looking at this in terms of what can we reasonably support in terms of proper promotion and proper.
Or we just need to make sure we have sales every quarter. So let's shove Avowed into the next quarter because we have plenty of games in this quarter, even though they're not related very much to Avowed.
Some of that. I think your options here to either delay this or Indiana Jones, and maybe Indiana Jones is just looking better right now. But I don't really believe you can make anything specific, particularly drastic happen in 3 months, because especially given what we know about how Obsidian games usually launch, there hasn't really been anything where Obsidian was able to fix anything like that in 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, you could fix a big bug that you stumbled upon late.
But also, why not just say that?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason not to say
because then
that.
people start questioning the quality of the game.
But it doesn't matter, because most people are never even going to know that happened. This is just for the core audience.
No, you're right.
Like, why not just say, like, hey, it doesn't make you look bad to the core audience. It's like, hey, we found this thing. Instead of launching with a broken game, we're going to fix it and give it to you when it's done.
Yeah.
And, like, most
that message usually works.
Most non-shitty people are going to accept that just fine.
Well, there is a certain contingent, Matt.
Sure, but they're just loud. There's not enough of them to matter. That's why. That's one of the reasons they're so mad.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
Everything else they like is evolved to exist in the world with just fine, and they haven't.
Yep.
Like, they don't matter anymore, and that's what really pisses them off.
Yeah. So the new release date for Avowed is February 18th, 2025. And at least they do have a hard date. Usually once they set those, they don't change, but they never really had a hard date for this year. It was just November-ish. But now they have a very specific date, and hopefully they can stick to it again. That's February 18th, 2025. Next up, a big story hit yesterday that all the outlets were reporting on, but if you actually use SIFTD and you dig around on our website, you would have known that this story was actually a story from 2021, but Sony Santa Monica is working on a fantasy game. This is yet another case where a listing on LinkedIn, it's really crazy how many people don't realize that listing stuff on their LinkedIn profiles is a huge no-no and a huge mistake. But that's what happened. Somebody worked on the fantasy game at Sony Santa Monica Studios. They went on LinkedIn. They put it in their LinkedIn profile, and the whole internet went bananas saying, oh my God, Sony Santa Monica's making a fantasy game. They're not making another God of War game next. And so for a day, the internet freaked out. But if you go and look on SIFTD, we've had this game in our database literally for 3 years. They basically, what happened was they were hiring for the position that this guy just got like 3 years ago. And they mentioned that they're hiring somebody to handle character development in a new fantasy IP that they were working on. So we've actually known about it for a long time, but you may have come across news on the internet yesterday where people were like blown away that, oh my God, Sony Santa Monica is making a fantasy game. I'm very excited by that, obviously, but it's old news. And how cool is it that both Sony Santa Monica and Naughty Dog have kind of put their big franchises on hold to work on brand new fantasy IP? I think that's very exciting. I can't imagine what the God of War team is going to make with a fantasy setting, just like Naughty Dog. I can't imagine what they'll do with it either. So very excited for both of those games, but this was kind of one of those stories that hit the internet and it went crazy on social media, but as it turns out, it was something that we all knew about for quite a while. But this may be news to you if you don't use SIFTD every day, and people who watch this show, not all you guys do. This may be news to you. So yes, Sony Santa Monica is working on a fantasy game, and it looks like it's going to be the next game that it releases. So that's all exciting stuff. And we probably should see that pretty soon, Matt.
Maybe.
I mean, God of War Ragnarok came out, in 2018, 2019? Or the original God of War was 2018, right?
Yeah, Ragnarok was 2021.
Yeah. So, I mean, but still, we're at the point where we should see Sony Santa Monica's next game pretty soon here. It's been a while.
Yeah, maybe next, 2022 for God
Ragnarok?
Ragnarok, yeah. Because it was just far enough away from the launch of the PS5 that people questioned why it was on both.
And Sony Santa Monica didn't do the PC version, right? That was Nix's or whatever.
Yeah, usually the original teams don't do the PC versions.
Yeah, so they've had a couple years now to work on the next thing.
I think you're talking about late next year being the earliest they could have a new thing ready.
I don't think it'll be done maybe next year, but they should show it.
Yeah, probably.
Announce it.
This is their first new IP in 20 years?
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I'm sure that they're going to be very protective of it and make sure they want to do it right. Because a lot of people are going to be pissed. They're like, wait a minute, where's the next God of War?
Well, it's also funny because people are just like, oh, a fantasy. Like, what are they working on? A fantasy? Like a fantasy game from Sony Santa Monica? What's that going to be like? I don't know. Do you think God of War is not a fantasy game? Like, what are you talking? Like, this is what they do.
Yeah, but this is more like Greek mythology versus like traditional dark fantasy. And
I don't know what else. I would, in terms of like the names of the characters, sure, but I wouldn't call I wouldn't call God of War not dark fantasy.
No, you're right. In the literal sense, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But anyway, I'm excited to see any great studio working on new concepts, new ideas. Although you're right, this isn't completely out of its wheelhouse, which should give us faith that it can deliver a pretty good game.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I don't know. Maybe we'll see it like announced next year. I don't know. It's hard to.
Timing seems about right for it. We'll see. Maybe even at the Game Awards at the end of the year.
Seems too early. I feel like we might be playing this somewhere closer to Elder Scrolls.
Really?
I feel like this is going to be a.
It doesn't take Sony Santa Monica that long.
Not usually, but I think
they're faster than Naughty Dog.
Their quality though, they took them 4 years to make Ragnarok, which was pretty much building off the existing template of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're reinventing things into a new IP, I could see it taking them 5 years.
Maybe, yeah, longer for sure.
Which would put them in 2027.
Yeah, which would mean it would be a bridge game probably between PS5 and PS6.
If PS6 even happens.
Right. Who knows at this point? I'm really starting to wonder the way things are going right now. But anyway, Sony Santa Monica working on a new franchise that is not God of War. I know that may freak some of you guys out, but I think you guys should keep your minds open.
I think we've had enough God of War for a while.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
We're good on God of War.
We had 2 amazing God of War games.
We're about to hit the anniversary of the original. I hope they do some kind of nice collection thing of the.
I mean, they might do like a remake of the first game.
I think you do like a collection of the first 3.
Why not?
Something like that, and put a. I mean, I love the idea that like they're gonna need like to do that like kind of Warner Brothers style like. These games are of their era, and there's offensive things in them, but we're leaving them there as a historical document kind of thing. It's just like
to show you how we've evolved. Yeah.
Sorry, he's kind of a dick.
Yeah, I mean he always has been, and he still kind of is. Yeah, I mean that's Kratos. Next up, the story that we hinted about earlier when Logitech's bloatware showed up on our screen. Logitech this week, it just had a turnover. It just lost its CEO. I also was shocked to find the CEO, the ex-CEO of Logitech, went to some place where it's like this crazy prestige job that is not working in like gaming peripherals. And I forgot now what it was, but I was like, really? That guy got that freaking job? But anyway, the new CEO just came in at Logitech, and one of her big new ideas, because when you're a new CEO, you have to come up with some lame-brained...
your new mission.
Right, you have to have some mission statement or whatever. And,
interactivity.
Right, exactly.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, Logitech's new statement is that they are trying to create a forever mouse. And when I first saw the headline, I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, I don't ever have to buy a mouse ever again. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
like
that's a big issue in my life.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you talking about? You want to talk about a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how much is the subscription going to be?
Well, and you were right. So as it turns out, it's the forever mouse it's not where like...
It's not a really well-made mouse. It's just we're going to charge you every whatever to send you a new mouse.
Firmware updates.
Forever.
Yeah. Their idea is that you subscribe to Logitech and give them money every month as a subscription service, and in exchange for that money, they send you firmware updates for the mouse. Something that has just happened for free forever. And now all of a sudden they're expecting us to pay a monthly fee for it.
It's like, first of the month, mouse is due.
Right. Like when I first read it, I was like, okay, they're making it modular. So like you can install new parts in it as they get better or what? No.
Right. Or like it'd be like I don't know, some kind of like, Razer Kit subscription service where like every few years they send you the new Logitech mouse with better feet. It's like, that doesn't seem to be what they're talking about.
No, it's just firmware updates. Like everyone's trying to turn everything into a subscription service now. It's like my wife, for Christmas a couple years ago, she wanted a printer. She's really into photos and photography. She wanted a really good printer so she could print out her photos. So I got her this printer. But like, you can't go to the store and buy ink for the printer. You have to subscribe to this $3 a month plan where they monitor how much you have left in your thing, and it sends a signal to them. So when you get low, they just automatically send you like a new cartridge of ink or whatever. And it's $3 a month, and like I've been paying for it all this time.
I mean, what model that is.
Yeah.
That's game as a service.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It is.
Guaranteed base level income from a certain number of people who are always going to forget to stop subscribing.
Well, I'm still paying for it. And they have sent us 2 things of ink the entire time since she's had the printer.
Pointless.
Everything doesn't have to be a service.
Well,
Everything doesn't have to be a subscription.
Like Logitech, I mean, I think I have.
I have a Logitech mouse.
I don't remember if I have a Logitech mouse or if the last one was. But like to me, when you say Logitech mouse, I think that one like $30 mouse you can get that everybody
has
that was like you could smash it against the wall and it would still. It was like the Ford F-150 truck of mice. You know, it was like, nope, that's just gonna be here forever.
Yeah, it is gonna work the same.
Until
never better, never worse.
Until it decays, right? Until like something in it like corrodes because it's 14 years old and it was never meant to live that long.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about a mouse that has a longer lifespan than like a puppy. You know, like it's ridiculous.
Mighty Pony Girl says, before you can double click, please watch this ad.
Yeah.
That's how they get around you paying monthly, is they make you watch ads for the mouse.
Yeah.
Or for other things. It's not even related to the mouse. So anyway, I don't know what Logitech is thinking. This is insane.
You're trying to right click.
Dude, nobody in their right mind is ever going to do this. Did you hear about BMW?
For God's sake, if the mouse is in on it, you can't click to skip the ad.
Right. Yeah. If they disable the mouse. Yeah. Did you hear about BMW? Like they now have a subscription service for like the heated seats in their cars. Like, the car comes with heated seats, but you have to pay a subscription for BMW to send the signal to turn it on in your car.
The car has DLC.
You've paid for it. You can't use it. Like, this is madness. And it's not just gaming. It's everywhere.
It's DLC for your ass.
For your life, for everything. Like, how long, Matt, until it's like they have like a subscription service for like toilet paper? There probably already is one.
I mean, you can do that on Amazon.
Yeah, I guess you can. You can just be like, yep, just send it to me every,
Or you remember, like, that period where they did that thing where you had the little buttons?
Right.
And, like, every button was a different product, and when you ran out, you just pressed the button, and it automatically ordered it for you?
Yeah.
I found a box full of those recently.
Really?
I'm like, what do these do now? It turns out nothing. They do nothing.
Yeah, they're disabled. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it feels like they're trying to bleed us for subscriptions for frickin' everything as gamers anymore. But again, it's not just gamers. It's happening out in the rest of the world as well. It's just complete insanity.
There's a definite stink of desperation about it.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, here's what happened. Logitech boomed during the pandemic. And because everybody is working from home. Everyone had to buy mice, and they had to buy all this Logitech stuff to work from home.
And all this is like, well, as long as I'm here, I might as well get a nicer mouse.
Right. Or I just need one because I work at work. I don't work at home. Yeah. So
my mouse is trapped in the office, and no one can get to the office.
Right. So the financials have looked horrible for Logitech since everyone went back to work. Because their sales have just flatlined compared to where they were.
Probably because they actually make pretty good stuff.
They do. They last.
And like that means you don't need to buy Logitech stuff more than about once a decade.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Well, they'll just start making their stuff worse so that it dies.
I mean, that's why
engineered obsolescence. Yeah.
That's why your dishwasher doesn't last 40 years anymore.
Like it used to, or your washer and your clothes washer. Or whatever.
Yeah. Well, washer and dryer. We had a washer and dryer that was about the same age I was.
Yeah. They just last forever.
Lasted until I was almost 40.
Well, my grandparents had a refrigerator in their basement in their garage that was literally like 60 years old. It still worked great.
And like that washer dryer was a particular yellow beige color that you could have only gotten in 1976. Like I believe in me. Yeah, it was just like
straight out of a Bob Ross palette.
Yeah, I don't think I ever asked my mom why she picked. Maybe it was just because that was what was there.
It was probably the nicest brand at the time, and they came in that color or whatever.
Like everything was just everything had to match the wood paneling. Like,
cute yellow green. Yeah. So anyway, that's the latest on subscription systems in the games industry. And just a couple more stories to go here. So we talked a minute ago about how Bungie is being split into kind of this smaller-ish developer inside PlayStation. Well, Blizzard has announced that it is doing the same thing. Blizzard has announced that it is creating smaller AA development teams internally to create smaller games. Matt, do you think this is a good idea?
I mean, might as well try it. I don't know if Blizzard's the one to do it.
Well, I think it's not a good idea. And the reason I don't think it's a good idea is because we've seen other publishers do it. We just saw Ubisoft do it with the latest Prince of Persia game. 2D, Metroidvania-style Prince of Persia, completely frickin' tanked. Look at all EA's smaller, like EA Originals imprint or whatever. All those games tank. Those games never sell very well either.
But like the thing, like when you say AA, like I think you should be aiming for something like Hellblade 1 instead of like a 2D Metroidvania, which seems to be kind of the misinterpretation that happens there.
Well, I mean, if you remember, that 2D Metroidvania had advanced production values. It had legitimate cinematics with voice acting and blah, blah, blah.
But you're never going to get that across to the mainline audience. Like, if you want to get them involved, you need something that looks AAA but simply doesn't cost that much.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that does that is something along the lines of what Ninja Theory was trying to pioneer there. Like, I'm sure Blizzard could do stuff like that. Like, I don't think the Lost Vikings 3 is the solution here. You know, like,
I think this is a terrible idea. You're basically going against what you've built your brand around. Like, nobody looks at Blizzard as like, yeah, cheapish games that I can buy for $20 or $30. Like, no. People buy Blizzard games because they're amazing. And they spare no expense making their games. They make incredible cinematics like this just to promote their games. Like, this would cost most publishers thousands and thousands of dollars to create this stuff.
ETH Demon, AA to me means Yakuza. That's an excellent example. Yakuza is absolutely a AA game.
Yeah. Like a Dragon, you think is? I don't think so.
100%.
Those production values are pretty high in the last couple of
They don't
games.
cost like what AAA does, though.
Yeah.
You're not spending tens of millions of dollars.
I think that might be a little too far in the other direction. I think Yakuza is closer to AAA than AA.
I think that's the illusion. I think that's exactly what ETH Demon's saying. You have to aim for this thing that tricks you into thinking it's that.
I think to believe that, you'd have to ignore the new nomenclature of Quad A, which is like this new thing. Like,
that is Ubisoft bullshit.
But other people are using it now,
right? Because it escaped containment.
Like the Power World developers said this week, they're not going to make
because
Quad
those
A
people
games.
know that because they have Ubisoft people on it. Ubisoft has used Quad A internally for like 15 years.
Yeah,
and like when
people use it now.
Power World, those guys said that, and people started using it. All the Ubisoft people I knew like lost their fucking minds. They're like, oh my god, it escaped containment. It's gone. It's out.
I don't think it's just Power World though. Other people have been.
Oh no, it's because like I said, it's out there now, but it's a stupid thing.
Yeah.
It's a stupid idea.
But I think what it does is it kind of resets the scale a little bit for people. It's like, oh, there's these Quad A things now, so what's AAA? I think it lowers the bar for AAA when you say there's something better than AAA.
Yeah, I don't think most people even hear that.
I just don't think people are expecting games like this from Blizzard. I think they're expecting bleeding edge, the best at whatever genre they're working on, video games.
Like, what qualifies as AA budget at this point?
Pretty much every game we're about to talk about in the THQ Nordic Showcase.
Right, but what budget-wise?
Literally,
but what is that? What is that? What is the
Darksiders, Wreckfest,
right, but I'm not asking
2.
for titles. I'm asking for numbers. Like, how much is a AA
I mean,
budget?
like the budget for it?
How much is a AA budget?
My guess is under 50 mil.
Okay, so Yakuza 7 costs $30 million to make.
Yeah.
That's a AA game.
Yeah. It's right on the fringe. 50 might be
but
a
that's
little
easily
generous.
what
Actually 50 may be too high.
50 probably too high.
Yeah.
But 30
it's
million,
probably like under 30, I would say.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, Yakuza up, but again, Blizzard can do that. Blizzard isn't hurting for money. You know? Like, you could easily a $30 million game for Blizzard would absolutely be AA budget to them.
I look at Blizzard's AA stuff is its mobile games.
That would be no A to me. That would be A. That's the A. EH. Triple EH would be what I would say.
I just look, if Blizzard is like trying to pivot and it feels like it's struggling financially, I do not think that this is what's going to solve its problem. Mm-hmm. I guess is what I'm getting at.
I mean, it might, you know, if you can get StarCraft Ghost made for $20 million.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard that one in a while.
I mean, are you telling me that if they suddenly made StarCraft Ghost, people wouldn't fucking pay attention?
Oh, I'd play it. I'd
100%.
absolutely play it. Yeah.
There's something there. But again, I think part of the key is you need to make it look like a AAA game in terms of presentational, if not in terms of fidelity. You know, it doesn't have to look like this, obviously. But it's like people should look at it and not instantly know, like, oh, this is it. They're gonna, because I think, like, you're not wrong that like Prince of Persia was really high quality and they spent a ton of money on it and it looked really good, and I mean, there's a lot of work in there. I mean, I'm not, you know, not to disparage it at all, but I think a lot of people, especially people who don't know any better, look at that game and think indie game.
No, yeah. I mean, I look at it and say indie game.
And like, I mean, I certainly don't, because I can tell that like that costs way more than any indie.
I understand that, but it looks like an indie game.
But like, I mean, again, that's a prejudice that like isn't fair, but it exists. And so I think you need to make it look, you know, you need that screenshot to look like God of War, not like, you know,
maybe the game lasts 6 hours instead of 60 hours.
Yeah, I mean, even that doesn't necessarily matter if you can get the fucking thing in play, the template in place. Like, but like, you know, you could do a StarCraft Ghost for relatively cheap. You know, as you said, THQ Nordic does it all the time. Like,
yep, yeah. So anyway, that seems to be Blizzard's new strategy. I don't know if it's gonna work. I
mean, it's
ETH
better.
even says Dragon's Dogma 2 is AA 2.
Yeah, yeah, that probably.
I think it's probably more than 30 mil.
I don't know.
I don't think Capcom announces that stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, but stuff like that gets out.
Yeah, somehow. Sometimes it does.
I think Dragon's Dogma 2 probably costs more than a Yakuza game.
You would think. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing about the Yakuza games is they reuse stuff. So, I mean, it's a assembly line.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of the advantage they have.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is that Dragon's Dogma 2 is in development for at least 3 years.
Dragon's Dogma 2 is estimated between 70 and 120 million.
Yeah.
So I would say that's AAA.
Yep, I'd agree. So anyway, that seems to be Blizzard's
Dragon's Dogma
strategy.
2 feels like a double A.
The way it
I mean,
plays.
I love that game. Don't get me wrong. That's one of my favorite games of the year.
I could see why Eth Demon would have played it and been like, this feels like a double A game.
I think Dragon's Dogma 1 was.
Yeah. Budgets back then were way cheaper, period. So we'd have to adjust our scale to go back then. Then it would be like 10 million or less, probably.
Dragon's Dogma 1's estimated 40 to 50 million, which is, again, about 30 million less than Monster Hunter World. But meanwhile, Dragon's Dogma 2 costs more than Resident Evil Village. Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't know what you're thinking when you spend that kind of money on Dragon's Dogma 2.
Well, a lot of it is just the skill of the team.
Oh, yeah.
Some teams are better and faster at making games, so you're going to spend less on making them. But
yeah, the length of time Dragon's Dogma 2 is probably a large part of that budget, more than like assets or anything. You're just paying artists.
Yep. And then our final story for this week's housekeeping is another crazy business concept. This company, NZXT, has started renting gaming PCs by the month for $50 to $170. And obviously the $50 model is a crappy graphics card, crappy CPU, slow RAM, and then there's like 3 or 4 different packages and they go up, obviously. If you get to the $170 per month, you get a 4070 Ti, I think. Mm-hmm. And then the processors, one of Intel's better processors. But Matt, who in their right mind would ever pay to rent a PC for $50? I can understand a little bit, but dude, $170 a month. Just save the money for 10 months and buy your own that you will own forever.
I mean, what are you going to get for like 170? What, $1,700?
I mean, that's almost $2,000. Yeah, I just rebuilt my PC for $1,000.
This feels like it's for people who just want to play one game.
I guess people who are League of Legends players or whatever.
Well, no, I meant one game briefly. I mean, like you want to play, you want to play like Cyberpunk.
And you want to rent it for the month and then send it back?
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I want to play this high end, like cutting edge game on this like high end graphics card, but I can't afford any of that stuff. I'm just gonna rent this for 2 months, play through this game. Now I'm done. I'm gonna send it back.
They didn't say anything about like minimal rental periods either yet. No. So you may be right. Maybe they'll let you rent it for a month or two and then send it back. But they also, like, in the...
That's not a bad idea in terms of appeal. I just, like, the shipping costs on that must be crazy.
And you have to pay $50 to have it shipped. And so you pay that plus the $50. And then, like, if you read the fine print, there are very stringent things. Like, if you return it and it doesn't have everything, like the box and the instruction manuals and all the little twisty ties and stuff, then they will charge you money for missing stuff and things like that. It just sounds... like, way more of a hassle than it would ever be worth.
Sounds like leasing a car.
A little bit, which is also a really bad idea, by the way. For those of you out there thinking about leasing a car instead of buying one. Financially, it's a really terrible decision. So,
but sometimes it's the only decision you have.
What? Leasing a car?
If you don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have enough for a down payment or whatever. Although, typically, you need a down payment to lease cars, too, now. You have to put down like $1,000 or $2,000 usually.
But, like, again, usually less than a down payment for buying it. So it doesn't...
Yeah.
Again, look, they're probably counting on people not doing that math. There's always a contingent, there's always a customer base you can exploit that doesn't really understand the economics of that or doesn't even have enough economic mobility to be able to make that choice. They have this or nothing.
There's also the place
it's sort of the same thing as
Rent-A-Center.
as layaway.
Yeah, or layaway. There's rent-a-centers, too, or I don't know if they exist anymore. But they used to be stores in malls where you could go in there and you could rent, like, a VCR for the week.
I got bad news for you about malls, too.
They're still thriving in L.A. You go to that one in Culver City, man, it's like being transported back to 1983.
There's no rent-a-centers at the Culver City.
There's not.
Westfield.
No, there's not.
You're lucky to find a hamburger less than $10.
You're right.
It's like going to Starfleet Academy.
But the malls here are booming, man. Like,
well, it's a couple of them.
My wife drags me to them every once in a while, and it blows my mind.
Go
It literally,
over to 3rd Street Promenade, see how that's going.
Yeah.
Not great.
It'll blow your mind that, like, it's literally like you've just been time warped back to, like, 1983. It's just the malls are packed and, like, they're multi-level.
It's just like the Sherman Oaks Galleria is a ghost town.
Is it?
Like the stuff that used to be the big malls are dead. The revamped ones are doing, like the Grove and Americana. They're doing pretty well.
Century City's booming.
Century City's doing pretty well.
That one in Culver City's booming.
Century City's ridiculous because the last 3 or 4 times I've been there, it took me 30 minutes to find a parking space. Like,
oh, it's booming.
There's no way to get anywhere in. I'm like, I don't understand what
I lose
happened.
my car in that place.
It's ridiculous.
I have to take a picture of it to
Have you been to the Rock's French Toast place?
No.
It's called.
Oh no, I have.
It's
amazing,
yeah,
man.
Very good.
Oh my god, it's
5-inch
ridiculous.
thick French toast.
Michelle got it for me one time.
Good.
It's amazing. Yep. So anyway, if you are hurting to rent a gaming PC, I know y'all, that's the furthest thing from your mind. You can do it for $50 to $170 a month, and again, that company is NZXT. And with that, we've just wrapped up our housekeeping, and it's time to hear from our sponsor, LS Cream.
Hey everyone, Stevens here from LS Cream. I hope that everybody's doing well. Guys, if you've heard Shane talk about it a little bit, about all the situation in Pennsylvania, getting LS Cream into that, basically you quickly understand that the liquor industry, it's kind of difficult to navigate in. Right now, we've been put in a situation where one of our distributors has basically kept all of our money. That was not obviously part of the plan. We basically started an Indiegogo campaign to overcome that situation. Basically, you'll be able to we'll be able to ship you a bottle of LS Cream regardless of where you are. A lot of people in the comments during GameFace, they say about having LS Cream in Europe. So this is your chance to actually get a bottle of LS Cream using that campaign. So first of all, I want to thank every one of you that supported LS Cream since the beginning that we've been sponsoring GameFace, and for now, I really hope that you guys are gonna go and support us. And thank you so much. We are not backing down. We deserve a shot. This industry is kind of corrupt, but we're trying to make a difference. Thank you so much for your help, and I'll see you soon.
All right, people, very important. The Indiegogo for LS Cream ends in just a few days. So this is the last episode of GameFace that we can push you guys to the Indiegogo. So again, go to Indiegogo.com, search for LS Cream, and the campaign will pop up there. And the other thing to remember too is if you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching it on SIFTD, we have a very specific link that allows you to get the Cray Mask t-shirts. Not anybody can get the Cray Mask shirts. You have to be a sifter. You have to be watching this show either here live on our stream or on YouTube or at siftd.net. Use that link, get yourself a Cray Mask shirt. Literally, it will be like a collector's item. There aren't many of them out there. It's something that Stevens Charles did just for us sifters. Go do it. If you're watching this show on Saturday or Sunday on YouTube, which is when we usually publish it, I think that's the last day of it. I could be wrong by a day. But anyway, regardless, go and check. Go to Indiegogo.com, search for LS Cream, support them. Obviously, Stevens Charles is a huge gamer. He's a sifter. Try to support gamer-owned businesses whenever you can. Try to help out people like us, people who strike out and try to be brave and launch their own businesses. Support if you can. Again, go to Indiegogo.com, search for LS Cream, and support LS Cream. And also, just go buy yourself some damn Cray Mask. It is delicious. It is amazing. I love LS Cream. What I really like about it, and I've realized this, Matt, is it's not as thick as a lot of other liqueurs. Like some liqueurs, like you got to pour it out of the bottle, and it's almost like syrup that's like coming out. Like LS Cream mixes very well with other stuff, and it doesn't make it like almost like a milkshake like a lot of other liqueurs.
It's interesting because I like it because I think it does do that.
Oh, really? I mean, it's thicker than a typical liquor.
It's much thicker than Bailey's.
You think so?
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
Bailey's I always found too watery. I like LS Cream because it is a little more milkshakey.
Oh, I wasn't comparing it to Bailey's, though. I was comparing it to other liqueurs, where literally, if you get some of that stuff, it pours almost like syrup.
Like a cordial thing.
Yeah.
More like a syrup. Yeah, but I was comparing it to like other cream liqueur.
Yeah, it mixes great with so many different things. Aside from their Indiegogo, just go buy the liqueur. It is incredible. Matt and I swear by it. We drink it constantly. It is awesome stuff. It is also, I think it's a good liqueur for people to buy who aren't like big time drinkers. Because you can just put a couple dollops in a drink. It tastes delicious. You don't really taste the alcohol until later on you feel it a little bit. So I love LS Cream. We love LS Cream. Support LS Cream. Go to indiegogo.com and search for LS Cream. With that, it's time to start reviewing some games here.
The nearest Rent-A-Center is down Crenshaw.
So there is one.
There's 3 in LA. It looks like there's one down Crenshaw near the Baldwin Hills mall, that big mall down there. Which last time I was there had a really good independently owned game store. I don't know if it's still there. And Southern Girl Sweets.
Oh.
Owned by a woman who I think won or almost won like Cupcake Wars.
Oh, wow.
Recommended.
LS Cream has won some awards, by the way.
Yeah.
Like it's got its share of like medals as well. Yeah. So anyway, we love LS Cream. Support it however you can. We're all about it here on GameFace.
Rent LS Cream to own at Rent-A-Center on Crenshaw.
Yeah, Rent-A-Center is like, I was in one like when I was really young. I just walked in there to like check it out, and they rent like anything. TVs, back then, VCRs. Like now I'm sure they rent Blu-ray players.
Well, to me, I just because of the image in my head from the commercials that I used to see, like I'd be disappointed if I walked in there and they didn't have like the big CRT,
right?
Like wood pen. Like, no, I want something with rabbit ears. I'm at Rent-A-Center. I want a Zenith.
They rent like ironing boards and like.
Give me a Zenith TV with the little speaker on the side I can poke like the push pin into.
Oh yeah. RCA, that's another brand that just kind of went away after HD TVs were a thing. Yep. All right, let's get on with our game reviews, and I'm just going to say it right now. We're not going to spend, well, actually, we're not reviewing games at first. We're going to talk about THQ Nordic, but when we do get to our reviews, we're not going to spend a ton of time on them because these games, we're going to have some fun with them, and we're going to move on.
Because I didn't spend a ton of time on them. Is why.
But the first thing we're going to do is very quickly, we're going to recap the biggest event of the week, and that was THQ Nordic's showcase for 2024. Obviously, it decided to get out of the Summer Game Fest, not E3 window, and go closer to Gamescom. You think that was a smart decision?
When all you've got is a dinner fork, you probably shouldn't jump into the gunfight.
That's probably a good way to put it. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but there's even one game that they teased in this, and it's going to be shown in full at Gamescom. So there is some synergy going on between this event and Gamescom ultimately. And don't forget, Gamescom is in like a week and a half. Yeah. It's like August 18th or something like that.
Sure.
Yes, it's not far away either. So that'll be coming up soon. But anyway, THQ showed six games, something like that, in the showcase. Probably the biggest one, I think most people would agree, is a brand new Darksiders game. They haven't said whether it's Darksiders 4 or whether it's a Darksiders spin-off. They put out this teaser trailer that doesn't give up a whole lot. They did say that the 4 Horsemen are returning.
Sure.
And that's pretty much it.
I mean, at this rate, I'm like, it's probably like a fucking online character shooter.
Maybe.
Bullshit. Like, because, I mean, you're hoping that at some point they follow up on that 14-year-old cliffhanger of Darksiders 1, but that really seems to not be in the cards at this point.
Darksiders 3 also was a different kind of game.
They've always done that, like, because the original plan was to have a game for each horseman, and then the 5th one would be the continuation of the end of 4, where it was basically like a Borderlands 4-player co-op thing, and all four of them played very differently. Mm-hmm. So like you would have War with his sort of Zelda-style, God of War style combat. You would have Death with his more like open world run around kind of like, you know, that kind of combat. You'd have, in the end, Fury with her more Devil May Cry style stuff and Dark Souls style. So you'd have Strife, would theoretically be a first-person shooter because he uses guns. No one really knows if that Darksiders Genesis game counts as the Strife game because he was the other player in that. I hope so because I'd really just like to get on with this. Thank you. I like the Darksiders games for the most part, but I just move forward, please.
I feel like they've mishandled the IP.
Well, the IP jumped around a bunch for a couple of times. I don't know. The first one's pretty good. Like a surprisingly solid Zelda clone. especially from a first-time developer.
Yeah.
The second one
Failed to move things forward much.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, they're not even prequels; they're parallels.
Right.
They're like it was the story of what Death was doing during the events of Darksiders 1, and this is pretty much the story of what Fury was doing before and during Darksiders 1. And these games have just sort of caught up to the end of Darksiders 1, which where the very last shot of Darksiders 1 is them basically saying to War, like, you can't face us all alone, and he says, "No, not alone," and then there's 3 more, horsemen flying in, and then that's where we've been left since 2010. Basically. So I don't know. I mean,
I feel like they should have just continued the damn story.
Probably. I mean, I like what they were after in Darksiders 2, like a big open world, like action RPG, like epic trek through the other dimensions and worlds of this crazy, weird, dark fantasy place. But the problem was, they went really overboard in terms of collecting things and I mean, I never finished that game. And I had like 4 spreadsheets open the whole time. It's like, I need this many collectibles of this, and
that's no way to play a video game.
There's like 7 different kinds of like collectibles that are like in like 20, 30, 40, 50 items to collect, and none of them are on the map.
Yeah.
Like it required like research to get it done. And I just never really... I stalled out halfway through every time I tried to play it, and that was kind of it. I never finished 3 either. 3 was okay. I'm on board for a good Darksiders game, but like you gotta do it.
It feels like they just got too cute.
You gotta move it forward at some point. And I felt like Darksiders 3 pretty much happened the way it did because...
this is Darksiders 3, by the way, that we're seeing now.
Because like, I would not be surprised if they wanted to make, the follow-up real sequel, but like... they didn't have the money or the investment for it. Like that would be a big game. Like four of the horsemen, whether you make it a 4-player co-op Borderlands thing or you make it like a switch between characters over the course of the game, like sort of thing, or even if you have it just be a team that you're working with, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, like that's a big game.
It is, yeah.
So I would imagine I understand why they didn't go so ambitious when they're kind of because this was right after they'd been picked up by Nordic,
right?
All that. So maybe this is finally the deliverance of, the promise of this Darksiders 4 or whatever you want to call it, Darksiders. I mean,
my guess is it'll be called Darksiders 4.
Well, I mean, if the game where you have all 3 of them has to be dark because it's 4 of them.
Right.
Darksiders 4.
It makes too much sense. Yeah.
I mean, it should be Darksiders 4, the Horsemen or something. Like
the 4 Horsemen. Yeah.
I mean, there's something
there. Some play
right?
on words. Yeah.
So I don't know. But again, I don't trust it anymore. So this teaser is sort of like just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a teaser, and it did tease. They didn't say when we're going to learn more about this game, unfortunately. But it's been a while since Darksiders 3, so my guess is it's probably pretty far along.
It's been a while since Darksiders Genesis.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, so we'll see. But as of right now, no information, no platforms, no release date. Not even the name. It's just called New Darksiders Game, pretty much, and that's all that THQ has been willing to. Give
I'll be honest, like looking at that thing because it's the 3, the whatever those things are that he's stuck working for in Darksiders 1, and they say wake up horseman or whatever. I'm real concerned that this is like a remake of 1.
Really?
Because next year would be its 15th anniversary.
Oh. That would also be a huge mistake.
Yes, I agree. But the fact that it's that same location and they say horseman, singular,
right?
And that's basically the beginning of Darksiders 1 is you fight your way through like the day of Armageddon and then get your ass kicked and then you wake up in front of those things and they're like wake up horsemen.
You're like acolytes or something. I can't remember.
What their name. There's some kind of elder goddish sort of things that are out. They're basically the judges that keep the score even in the wars between heaven and hell or whatever, and like the horsemen answer to them for some reason. I don't remember the ins and outs of that universe very well at this point, but it reminded me of the beginning of 1 to the point I'm like, oh no, are you remaking the first game?
I don't think they will, but I've been wrong before. But I think that would be a huge mistake. But anyway, that's all we know about the next Darksiders game. My guess is we'll probably get more early next year, something like that. Or maybe this is something we get like the first real trailer at the Game Awards or something.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they're showing a teaser already. It means they're about ready to start showing more. So we'll see. Next up, Wreckfest 2. Matt, did you play the first Wreckfest?
I don't remember.
I feel like I should love these games. They're smash up derby games, basically, or they're combat.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, I was
driving
put
games.
off of Demolition Derby games by Destruction Derby.
Really?
Back in the day, because my roommate got that for the PlayStation 1.
We played the living crap out of it.
We thought it was one of the hardest fucking
It was
things
impossible.
we'd ever play. Like, what the it was one of the most irritating, most frustrating pieces of shit that I'd ever put myself through.
We played it incessantly, and you're right, it was like impossible.
At one point, like we could dip into and play it, but at one point we didn't play it anymore because my roommate got so mad at it, he pulled the disc out of the machine and threw it out the window.
I could see that. It was really hard to make any sort of headway in that game for sure. But the core concept of just smashing cars together, I feel like the older video games get, the better those games get, because the physics get better, the modeling gets better.
I mean, the tech on this is amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed or not, but when they showed that rolling car, the bottom of the car is animated. You can see the drive shaft spinning on the bottoms of the cars. I don't know if I've seen that before in a game.
Not that detailed, that's for sure. I mean, again, if you're going to do this, you have to do that, because it's one of the few driving games where you are guaranteed to see the bottom of the car pretty regularly, because things roll.
You're always rolling. Yeah. Right there. See it?
Yeah.
Did you see the drive shaft spinning? That's pretty freaking crazy.
I feel like I have seen that in other things. I feel like one of the Forzas did that.
Really? I don't remember ever seeing it before. But this does have a completely overhauled physics engine. It now has customizable cars that you can share with other players. It has a bunch of new game modes that the prior games didn't have. And as I mentioned, like the graphics have a huge overhaul compared to the old Wreckfest games.
Maybe it was Project Cars. Project Cars maybe had that.
I could see that. Maybe. That game was kind of ahead of its time, honestly. But look, I think the core concept of car combat is still compelling. It's still fun. And the one thing about this game is that they've managed to wrap it around driving. Like, just having vehicles fight each other, not that fun. Having some kind of a goal, a race that you're trying to win while you're also destroying each other, that is still holds some novelty for me. So I'm pretty excited for this game. Again, we don't have a release date for it. It's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. My guess is it's coming in 2025, though. There's no reason to believe this is one of those games that they announce and then it comes out 2 years later. So, and Vincent brings this up in chat, but this franchise is far more successful than you think. Like, when I was digging around for information on this, I was shocked at the communities around Wreckfest. Like, its Reddit is like alive. I couldn't
believe it. Online
it.
driving things like those communities really do exist and thrive. Like the same with the Mud Runner, Snow Runner stuff that you talked about.
Yeah. We covered that earlier this year. Yeah. There's big communities around that stuff too. Yeah. But people love this franchise, and this is only the second one, so fatigue hasn't set in yet. So the Reddit for this, people were like over the moon about all the stuff that was shown in this. So
bring back Split Second.
Oh yeah, I mean there's so many driving franchises that just one and done died.
Yep.
Even MotorStorm, like that wasn't one and done, but it disappeared after a while. I feel like there's still some value left in that IP, but I doubt PlayStation or most first parties. Most platform holders at this point will have their first party studios work on racing games or driving games.
I mean, you get all that stuff with so many do-overs and reshoots and reattempts on that fucking Need for Speed franchise, and you never did another Burnout.
Yeah,
and you never did another Blur.
Yeah,
you never did. So many things just died off.
The driving genre in general has really fallen by the wayside. It used to be a staple because it was very easy to make.
Yeah, well, also like. People don't care about cars as much anymore.
No, like because people don't own cars anymore.
No, kids don't care about cars or driving as much. Like
they're afraid of driving. A lot of the kids, like my nieces and nephews, are afraid of learning how to drive a car. They're afraid. I couldn't wait. When I was like 12 or 13, I'm like, I cannot wait until I'm 16. I can learn to drive. I can get in a car. I get my freedom. These kids are like, dude, I'll take Uber. I don't want to get run over. I don't want to do something stupid and kill somebody else. It's really funny how they look at it. But it's just not a part of their lives like it was for us. Like, there's other ways to transportate now. I just made up a word that there weren't when we were kids. Like, everything was a car or a bus back then. Things are different now. You can let other people drive you around for far cheaper than you used to be able to. So,
I mean, there are taxis for food now.
There are taxis without drivers now. Like, you just get in a car with nobody in it. It's freaky.
Don't trust that shit.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Wreckfest 2. That was one of the bigger games that were shown. And then one of the cooler, smaller games that they showed was this game called The Eternal Life of Goldman. It's a 2D platformer where it takes place on this like all the graphics are hand drawn. But it takes place on archipelago, and it's inspired by ancient fables, myths, and things like that. It's all mixed into like one game basically. But obviously the art style is the big story with this game. You might argue that this game looks like an indie game or a AA game. But anytime there's an art style like this, like I struggle to call anything low budget where you're doing something like this. It takes a lot of work to make games like this work. So this game is coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch. It's coming in 2025. Let me jump ahead a little bit here so you can actually see what the game looks like a little better. We need more games like this, I think. But again, they're so labor intensive that you just don't get them, unfortunately.
What happened to that game that was like looked like it had like all the kung fu fighting, sort of like Matrix-y style fighting? It was a 2D game. I think Microsoft was involved in it. Remember what I'm talking about?
No.
It had like really elaborate like martial arts fights, and it kind of had a cyberpunk vibe to it.
No, I don't remember it.
We've definitely talked about it. It doesn't look like this. It doesn't look like hand drawn or anything. But it made me think. This made me think of like what happened to that game?
Yeah.
Not the one that got not Sifu.
That's what I was thinking of. Sifu.
It's not 3D. It's 2D. It has like Absolver. That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah, that was it. Thank
you.
Who
pulled that one out? This is for Vidya Games. Good one. Good pull. I never would have come up with that.
Not the last night. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. So anyway, again, that's The Eternal Life of Goldman is coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series, Switch in 2025. Next up, a brand new franchise. This is the game I was talking about earlier. That was just shown with a teaser trailer, and it's going to be blown out in full at Gamescom 2024. They have not announced the title of it yet. It's coming from Team Tarsier, and that is the studio behind the Little Nightmares franchise. Now, if you remember, Little Nightmares 3 is actually being developed by a brand new studio, and it won Game of the Show at Gamescom last year, Little Nightmares 3. Remember that? Mm-hmm. We haven't seen it since, which is a little odd. My guess is it will show again at the next Gamescom. But the studio that made that game has started working on this. Looks to be a brand new horror franchise. No title for it yet, but again, we'll see more of this in a week or two at Gamescom. And pretty much this whole teaser is just showing this zombie pig. Is that what it is? I don't want to know what's inside that pig.
It seems to have been poorly operated on.
Yeah,
at the very least.
Yeah. So this is all you get. He doesn't step on the guts. That's what I was waiting for. The pig to step on the guts and for them to start coming out of his belly. But that didn't happen. So anyway, we don't know what that game is called yet, but we'll learn more about that here in a week or two at Gamescom. And then next up, a game that was already announced, but they showed again.
Maybe Absolver wasn't what I'm thinking. Was that the 3D thing?
I don't remember what. I would have never pulled that from what you told me. But Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed, which is a remaster of Disney's Epic Mickey, which originally was a Wii exclusive. Although, did it launch on PC?
It's not Absolver because it's not out yet.
Oh, okay.
It's been shown in a couple of things.
Okay, I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, did this launch for PC at the same time as the Wii? I don't remember.
No, it was a Wii exclusive.
I thought it was a Wii exclusive.
It started as a Wii exclusive.
This game has been drastically improved from the original version. Again, Wii is a standard definition console. Game Explain, the YouTube channel Game Explain, did a graphics comparison video for this, and it is amazing the work that they have done on this. Like, it really is incredible. Like, it is like a different game. And this is coming to every platform, Switch, all of them, on September 24th. So not long to wait for this. It is for those of you who don't know, who maybe didn't play the original when it came out, it is basically a 3D platformer that has like this art/drawing mechanic. A little bit like Okami. And of course it's...
Replaced.
That's what you're talking about?
Replaced.
Okay. But anyway, and obviously it goes through all the different eras of Mickey Mouse, even Steamboat Willie, as you just saw right there. So if you're a Mickey Mouse fan, this is like a tour de force. It's got some really cool stuff in it, a lot of great homages and nods to the franchise that fans
I really
of Mickey...
like this game.
It was great.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
It was great. It was really, really good. And again, that's Epic Mickey Rebrushed, coming to everything September 24th. And then just a couple smaller games that they showed. Titan Quest 2 Did you play the first Titan Quest, Matt?
I played hundreds of hours of Titan Quest 1.
So,
Titan Quest 1.
So then you're probably pretty excited for the sequel then?
Not even a little bit.
How come?
Because it's not the same people. And
Oh, really?
It looks really boring.
I didn't know that, actually, that it was a different studio.
Completely different.
Wow.
Because the people who made Titan Quest 1 went on to form a new company and made Grim Dawn.
Oh.
This is a totally different group of people. The environments look gorgeous, but the combat looks incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And like, there's, I think the large number of enemies I think you see on screen is like 5. Like, it's not
for a Diablo-like, that's a joke.
Not work. None of this didn't work for me at all. And I'm not like disinterested because I like Titan Quest. But like,
you're right though. It doesn't really show very many enemies at a time.
I don't like this.
Why is that?
I don't know.
That's really weird.
This sent off all kinds of red flags.
Interesting
for me.
I'm also like
skeptical.
I feel, it has been a while since I played Diablo 4, but I still feel like I'm just coming off it. Like, I don't play these games all that often.
Titan Quest is so long, especially now that you've got the extra, expansions.
Oh yeah, because there's a ton of them.
Like, it'd take you a long time to get through that game. Like, no matter, even if you're jamming through it. And like, I feel like I just did it. Like, what's left to do because Titan Quest 1 covers basically Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Vikings. I think you go to Asia at some point. Like, I mean, there's no
one size fits all.
There's no mythology left that hasn't been kind of fought through. And now I'm just like, okay, and like they're big mythical monsters, and it's just the same thing. And the least interesting boss fight I think I've ever seen
in a trailer. Yeah.
Like, what are you showing me here? Like, it doesn't feel like it was ready to be shown or something. Like,
I mean, it's been in development for a while.
I don't know.
We only have 3 trailers of it so far, but it's been worked on for quite a while.
It just feels like we should just go play Grim Dawn because that's where those guys went. That's where that team went.
Still no release date for it. It's coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, but yeah, we have no idea on a release date yet. So, and then the final thing that they showed was the Gothic 1 remake.
Oh yeah.
I
thought that was supposed to be out by now.
No, they showed a huge chunk of it. This trailer is 4 minutes long. So,
sure.
There's still no release date for this, Matt. Still no release date for it. Yep. This is coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch, but no release date. A lot of work has been done on this too, by the way. I mean, this is like night and day compared to the original.
Gothic was a good game. I mean, for the time, and it did. It has a lot of freeform stuff and a lot of there's a lot to recommend it. It's just playing it with the interface it was archaic even for the time, and now like figuring out how to pick something up was difficult.
It sounds like little changes could mean a lot, though.
Could.
So this could be something to keep an eye on here. But again, still no release date for this.
It really depends how much they think that like obtuse interface and like needlessly difficult nonsense is like integral to the ID.
To the IP.
Of the IP.
I would hope not. But this is also a gigantic improvement over the original game. I mean,
this is a remake.
This is a
remake of all remakes.
Yeah.
Here. This is a Demon's Souls level revamp here.
Yep. It looks really good. And as Matt said, the core of the game was really good. There were some creaky parts to it that were just kind of like a sign of the times more than anything. So they could make some very small tweaks.
I will not agree with that.
Oh, really?
This game was behind the curve at the time.
Really? 100%. I didn't feel that way.
100%. This and Gothic 2 were years out of date in terms of interface by the time they came out.
Interesting. 100%. I didn't remember that at all about this game.
No, even at the time, and I was on some forums with some real hardcore weirdo PC gamer grognard. Like, some of these people could play that fucking battle cruiser, like Derek Smart's like battle cruiser games effectively, which are one of the most obtuse things ever made. Even that forum was like, yeah, this sucks.
Wow.
Like figuring out how to get your inventory like from here into your hand and out of your hand into your inventory is nonsense.
Why are they remaking it then?
What?
Why are they remaking it then?
Why wouldn't they remake it?
Well, if people hated it, why would they?
They didn't hate it. They loved it, but it was like the thing you had to accept was the interface is garbage. And like one of the first things that happened were people just modding these things, like forcibly modding them to like make the interface sort of make sense. The inventory management and interacting with things was the biggest problem.
And again, those are easy things to fix.
And they did not fix it in 2. That was like
That's weird.
2's interface was different, but just as stupid. And then 3 was a little more standardized. 3 felt a little more standardized, but 3 kind of was made by a different team and had lost the freeform sort of. One of the things about Gothic 1 and 2 is that you can kind of go do whatever you want, but the game is going to like fucking punish you for. Like you have to use your kind of you got to use your judgment. Like, is there a snake the size of a building over there? Are you level 2?
Don't go over there.
Then don't go poke it with a knife. Like, it will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
If you see that thing, and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready to face that thing. You're probably right. And it will mercilessly murder you.
I mean, it was a little bit Soulsy before.
Right, and there were no
Dark Souls,
but it was much more unforgiving than Dark Souls because there's no autosaves. There's no, like. You could ruin your game if you saved at the wrong point. Like, it was crazy. You could kill NPCs that you needed for later things, and you'd end up in an unwinnable state. Like, it was completely freeform in both a good and a bad way. It was not here to help you in any way, shape, or form. And I'd say Gothic 2 is actually a better story than this one. This one's still good.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the appeal of a Gothic 1 full-on remake is that if it does well, they might do that to Gothic 2. And that would be an even better game.
Okay. And that's it for the THQ Nordic Showcase 2024. Very quickly, Matt, a letter grade that you would give that little soiree.
I don't know. C-.
Yeah, D+ is what I'm giving it. I mean, sadly, this is about as good as it gets for THQ Nordic in 2024.
I mean, if you showed me Darksiders 4 and it was an actual continuation of Darksiders 1, I might give you a B.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah. You're right. It only takes, for something like this, it only takes like 1 or 2 games to really set it off. Yeah.
If Titan Quest had looked good, I would give it higher.
Yeah.
But that was, it does look good. Visually, it looks good. Just that didn't look interesting to play at all.
And I think it was smart to actually separate itself from E3, where it doesn't have the comparison of the other like games. Like, I think it was actually smart to give it like this period in between E3 and Gamescom.
I think that trailer, if you're gonna show off your big epic bosses, you should probably have more than one boss in that montage, because you just cut between the same boss fight in the same place 5 times.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, and with that, it's time to move on to our first game review. We're going to discuss Star Wars Bounty Hunter. This is an action-adventure from 2002 that released for the GameCube and the PlayStation 2. It has now been revived for literally every current console, and I use the word revive very lightly because this game sucks, Matt.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
It is terrible. Matt, people have been giving this game 7s and 8s.
It wasn't a 7 or an 8 then. Like, I don't understand.
Let me just drop some science for you.
I am saying, like, the reviewers who are doing that played this when they were 8.
Maybe.
And don't have any perspective on it, because this game is garbage.
If you're looking to cut maybe a couple game critics or a couple podcasts out of your rotation, if you can find somebody that tells you that this game is good or even average, that's the person that you can cut out of your rotation, because they don't know what the F they're talking about. This game is so bad. Like, it's almost unplayable. Like, in some ways it was interesting.
And you can tell because I stopped playing it very quickly.
A Star Wars game.
I tried to, and I started it up again yesterday because I'm like, well, we're going to talk about it tomorrow. I got halfway through one level, and I'm just like, fuck this game. I just turned it off. I never even got out of the first chapter.
Yeah.
Like, it's just too fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And I never got much further than that in the original on the GameCube. Like, to be honest, this game was never particularly great to begin with, and playing it now with no improvements to anything, I did, because of playing it with a second analog stick, trying to aim first person, I did learn one thing. I think the blasters in this are hit scan.
Yeah.
There's
something.
Because he's doing the dual blaster thing, right? But these characters are dying before the blaster bolt hits them. I'm like, oh, you're registered as dead because these are hit scan guns, and the blaster bolt effects are completely cosmetic.
Yeah,
like
superfluous.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
This game is a prequel to Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. It follows Jango Fett, as he basically how they discover that why he should be the template for the clone army. That's the basic premise of it. And there's Count Dooku is in there, and Darth Sidious is thrown in there, and like. I played it for like 3 or 4 hours, and I felt like I was being generous to play it for 3 or 4 hours. There's just so much about this game that it was kind of refreshing at first to like play it and be like, wow, we've come a long way in 22 years. But then at a certain point, you're just like, to what you were saying, this wasn't even that good back when it came out. I don't understand. It feels like it's been re-released because it was Star Wars.
Yeah, it's just like they seem to be just sort of doing all the 20-year-old games as they come.
Yeah.
I mean, they put out that Clone Wars shooter.
Right.
Which, by the way, holds up way better than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
way better than this.
It's like the camera in this is terrible. The
It's like, why are you putting all this shit out, and you still haven't put out Rogue Leader?
Yeah.
On anything.
I know, it's
like,
bizarre, man.
What is going on?
Because if you're getting the licensing for this handled, surely you can do it for the other games that people actually want to play.
It's not a licensing thing. It's a time and money thing. They don't want to put. They haven't put the money towards that for some reason.
I mean,
don't
well,
know
the
why.
licensing would come into play if you're not Disney and you don't own the IP. You still have to pay to license the stuff.
Nobody's paying to license this. Lucasfilm is just commissioning it.
You think that's what happened?
I know that's what's happening.
Really?
Yeah. Lucasfilm is commissioning basically remasters of these things.
Who worked on this?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I assume probably the same people that worked on the Clone Wars shooter one.
I mean, they basically got it to run at a higher resolution, and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it actually, if you go back, because I did actually load up the GameCube game, they actually did make this look pretty good.
Oh, really?
I mean, it doesn't look good, but they didn't just up-res it and call it a day. They did smooth some edges over here.
Oh, really?
But they didn't fix the camera. They didn't fix the aiming. They didn't fix the thing. One of the things that I thought was funny, and like maybe we didn't notice it at the time or didn't realize it at the time, because this is from the era where people were still trying to figure out
how
stuff worked, how to make things real. One of the things that like blew my mind playing it now that we did not I very specifically did not remember thinking at the time was that he shoots in the direction he's facing.
Oh, yeah.
Not the direction the camera's facing.
Yeah.
And like
I shot a barrel and blew myself up one time.
Because I'm constantly, obviously I'm constantly comparing this to Uncharted, basically, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this was annoying too, because I couldn't figure out that you had to tag them before you get to arrest them. So I tied this guy up like 15 times and couldn't. And then I punched him and he died. And they're like, "Oh, you killed him, so you don't get the bounty." So I restarted it. I'm like, it's so. But
there's a whole bounty system in this where you scan, and then certain people are bounties that you can either take and pay.
You finish the second level, and it's like there's 10 bounties on that level.
I found 2.
Like, I'm like, what? Where are these fucking people? It's like, well, you got to explore. I'm like, I don't want to explore.
No.
The fucking controls suck.
It's very easy to get lost and not know where to go. Like, in the very first room, Matt, I could not figure out where to go. Like, that's one of those things. That's what I was talking about. I spun around and shot the barrel and killed myself. Like, this stuff like that happens in this game all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
I kept falling. I kept doing this thing where I try to jump to especially after I got the jetpack, I jumped to try to get to a ledge, and I'd miss the ledge, but I'd get far enough that he'd get friction.
Do his little grapple thing.
He'd kind of get friction on the object, but not the edge. And then he'd be on the edge long enough that the jetpack would run out, and then he'd go into his "oh no, I'm falling"
animation.
And if you end up in that animation for more than like 2 seconds, it kills you. Because it thinks that you fell to your death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you just suck.
Yeah. The camera is all screwed up. It jumps all around when you're in combat. Like,
yeah, like you can't. Like the camera jumps around in such a way. I've fallen off things just because the camera decided to suddenly jerk around for no reason.
Just the way he
It's
falls
terrible.
off of things, like you can't guess which way he's gonna fall off of stuff when he falls. Like he will, when you try to fall down in a hole sometime, trying to get him to fall down in the hole versus grapple onto the edge is like, there's just so many problems in this game that have been solved and settled since. Like,
I feel like they almost release this now just to be like, okay, you fuckers that are about to whine about Outlaws for 20 months.
Or the people who want games to be playable in perpetuity.
Yeah, here.
Here you
You
go.
want to see how bad it could have been? There you go.
And look, there's cinematics. Like here, I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by a couple of the cinematics because they're in real time, and they did like real time facial animation back in 2002 that goes along with like the voiceover, and that just wasn't happening all that often back then. Like most of the cinematics that did that were pre-rendered things, not in engine.
I think these are pre-rendered. They're just in engine.
I mean, they're in engine. You may be right. Like they may not be in real time, but they were done in the engine.
Yeah.
But they also
was a thing in Lucas that back then LucasArts did try to match the cinematics to the game. Like they didn't do that thing where everybody looks
where everything
way
was
better.
amazing in the CG and terrible in game. Like it's there. I could go on with. There's a litany of issues with this game. Like you can see, just trying to like aim with like any sensitivity is like a nightmare. Like it's way too sensitive. Like you can just shoot from the hip. And then whatever direction he's facing is what direction he shoots, or you can go for like the over-the-shoulder view, and then it gets really glitchy. Like the camera just doesn't know what to do when you stay in that over-the-shoulder view.
And it's surprising to me that they didn't fix that.
Yeah,
over-the-shoulder doesn't really work. Weirdly, the best way to play is to just sort of shoot.
Yeah.
Like
everything.
Like the aiming is really only for what you just did, like shooting specific things you need to blow up to progress through the environment. But like shooting enemies, it's always better to. I mean, you can lock on if somebody's above you, you can lock on, jump up there, and shoot them, and that's going to be good. But like generally, you just want to run along and do that, especially because like he will automatically aim at with the other pistol at other enemies that are.
Yeah,
to
you'll
your
see
side.
his arm just like failing out. Yeah.
Early Drake and the 99 Dragons action.
It's just bad.
It's terrible.
I really can't believe some of the reviews that people publish for this.
No,
where are the reviews editors at those publications? Is there one?
Like if you're giving this more than a 4 out of 10, like you're out of your damn mind.
I mean, even that is kind of generous,
awful.
honestly. If you're reviewing on where 5 is average, that's a generous score.
Yeah,
a 4,
but nobody
does.
That.
Yeah, on a 7 to 10 scale, this is a 4.
Yeah.
Yep, it's that bad. And look, I didn't really have fond memories of this game either. Like, it's one of those games where I was like, really? Why are they making that again? Like,
it was always just sort of this was a good idea for a game.
Yeah.
And it just is a bad game.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
A game where you play as Django Fett or Boba, because
they added Boba in here.
Yeah, Boba's in here.
That is one thing they added for this version. More Boba.
Well, I'll never see it.
Yeah.
So
I made it to, I don't know, like the 7th or 8th level, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I get it. And it is also weird, too, how the cutscenes stop, and then the mission finishes,
and then they just jump
then
ahead.
it goes right back to the cutscene again. Everything about this game is just so wrong. It's really bad. Cinetyke asks, is that a shooting gallery with Jar Jar Binks as a target? 10 out of 10. I didn't hate Jar Jar as much as a lot of people did.
No, I didn't mind Jar Jar that much. I don't find here's my hot take for the 25-year-old movie. I didn't think Jar Jar was any more annoying than C-3PO.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same character, right?
Yeah, I don't really have any use for the comic relief in most things, and that's no different with Jar Jar than it is. And honestly, I found 9-year-old Anakin a way more annoying character than Jar Jar ever was.
Me too. Yeah.
I kind of think the thing where his tongue gets caught in the energy binders on the pod racer and he goes, that tongue, I think that's actually pretty funny.
Yep.
In part because it reminded me of the old Bill Cosby dentist routine. And we can't talk about Bill Cosby anymore because he's a piece of shit.
Right.
So it's okay to have Jar Jar carry the torch for the numb tongue comedy bit.
The sad part is that he is kind of like the unofficial mascot for my college, Temple University.
Oh,
he spoke at my graduation. He's like the celebrity guy for Temple. And
Not anymore.
And now they have nobody. So anyway, stay far, far away. Look,
it's weird how nobody famous ever went to Temple University, huh?
Yeah, except for me. But anyway, look, if you're a big Star Wars fan, you might be tempted to play this or buy this or what. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Matt and I are both hardcore Star Wars fans. Neither one of us could stomach it more than for an hour or two. It is the worst of video games from 2002 in so many different ways.
I'd have to look at what else came out in 2002, but it is pretty bad.
I mean, you got to realize that Ocarina of Time came out in 1998.
Right.
This came out 4 years later, and it's a far worse game.
Right, but that doesn't mean other worse games didn't come out in 2002.
That is true.
Ocarina of Time is an exception, not the rule.
So there you go. That's Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It's available for everything, but don't even think about it. Just let it slide right on by. I know times things are desperate right now. There aren't a lot of games coming out. This is not the droid that you are looking for. I can promise you that much. Okay, and with that, it's time for a message from our sponsor, New York Sneaker Society. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right. I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers. And because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. Now that I've lived with New York Sneaker Society's products for a while, I will recommend get the wipes and get the spray. And that's the best two things you can get for easy cleanups to make your shoes look like new. You're not going to revive an old pair of shoes in your closet that are really beat up and you kind of left for dead, which you can do with their bigger packages and their more expensive products. But if you just want something to maintain your current shoes, get the wipes, get the spray, you'll be good to go. Make sure you use that URL, nysneakersociety.co/sifted, so that you get 15% off your deal, not just 10% as the ad says. They added an extra 5% to that URL, so make sure that you use it. And one thing we like to do for our sponsorship with New York Sneaker Society is we focus on a smaller game that was resonating with you guys during the week as our Sneaker of the Week. And our Sneaker of the Week for this week is a game called Stormgate. Stormgate easily was the most viewed smaller-ish game from the week on Sifted. It is basically a love letter to classic RTS games. It is built by former Blizzard developers who worked on StarCraft 2 and Warcraft. And this is kind of like their dream game. They're like, we're tired of working at Blizzard. We want to strike out and do our own thing. This is what they came up with. It's going to feature competitive 1v1, which obviously is a big part of any StarCraft-style game. And again, these people worked on the StarCraft franchise. There's 3-player co-op missions that you can play. There's custom games, and that's just what the game is going to launch with. There's an open, or actually not open, a closed beta going on right now. If you go to the early access channel on Sifted, look, there's a few things that Sifted does that you can't find anywhere else that is a huge resource for you. There is an early access channel on Sifted where we collect all the betas, all the alphas, all the demos. You won't find that anywhere else on the internet. Go to our early access channel. You'll figure out how to get in on this beta and pretty much every other beta or demo that's going on right now. And this is one of them. This game is coming out pretty soon. It's been in development for quite a while. And again, they're going through early access periods right now. If you want to get in on it, you can learn how by going to our early access channel on Sifted. So thanks to New York Sneaker Society for sponsoring GameFace. And that is our Sneaker of the Week for episode 398.
I looked up 2002 just to see.
Metroid Prime, somebody put in the chat.
No, there's a lot of really good stuff. There are 2 games that I see in here that I would rank below Bounty Hunter.
Okay.
One of them is the Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, which was that horrible action-adventure game that included Tom Bombadil from that weird... Because there was that company that got the book rights, whereas like EA had
that
the
used to be a
rights.
Thing. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So they made Fellowship, and it was just... Oh, my God, what a terrible game. And Bruce Lee Quest of the Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of the games that inspired X-Play.
Yeah.
Was like Ryan Vance was playing that game in the game lab, and we were sitting there making fun of it.
Yeah.
And like
this is a TV show.
Yeah, we're like, hey, we could probably just do this in the review, right? And like that was basically what started that.
Yeah. Yep.
That and wanting to be as funny as Old Man Murray.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
The Old Man Murray Rune review was one of the things I used in like the pitch document for X-Play as like this is what the tone should be.
Yeah. Yep.
The time to
That's
crate.
a time warp. Old Man Murray, for sure.
Yeah, and now those guys wrote Portal.
Yeah. So there are games worse than Star Wars Bounty Hunter from 2002.
Yeah, you got to look for it. I mean, some of those in there I don't remember. Like probably the Blade 2 game wasn't very good. Yeah. Like they're all licensed shit.
Mm-hmm. And back then, licensed games were.
Oh, you were almost guaranteed
a bad game
because that all you had.
It was a running joke on X-Play.
Yeah, you had too many cooks in the kitchen, and you usually had a deadline for when the movie or whatever it was came out.
And if it wasn't done or good, it's still coming out.
The funny thing is that Bounty Hunter, because looking at the release schedule, a lot of Star Wars games came out that year. They had Jedi Starfighter, Clone Wars, New Droid Army. Because it was the episode 2 official game, like there was a lot of stuff because episode 2 came out that year.
Yeah.
And Bounty Hunter was the last one I remember because they kept delaying it because it wasn't ready yet, and I remember looking forward to that really. And then finally
it was
came out,
never
ready. It was never ready. Right. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we're gonna preview Visions of Mana. I was just talking about our early access channel on Sifted. If you use that channel, you also would have found out about this. There is a demo live right now for Visions of Mana. I believe it's on PC, Xbox Series, and PS5. You can get the demo on all 3 of them. It's about an hour-ish long. It is sort of the... I feel like Square Enix has a bunch of big RPG franchises like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, and then it has this roster of like B-tier RPG franchises. Once upon a time, this one was kind of like the biggest of Square Enix's B-tier franchises. Yeah. It's been like 15 years since they've released a new one.
A long time. I mean, it peaked on the Super Famicom, I would argue. There were a couple good ones on the PS1, as I recall. But it's been pretty intermittent.
Yeah, well, it's been 15 years since a new game, and so people were kind of excited about this. And I think in the trailers, it looks like the game is better than it is.
No, I'd agree with that.
Because this game is also not very good at all.
In fact, look at her feet.
Yeah.
Roll that again. I want to roll. This is a thing that I noticed in playing this that I was a little shocked by. The girl in the mini dress in the snow. Watch her feet.
She's on these weird like platform shoes.
But when she's talking, watch her feet. Watch her feet slide when she animates. Because her feet aren't attached to the ground. I haven't seen that in a game in forever. Like, that's not a thing that happens
anymore.
There's
tons of stuff like that in this game. So this isn't...
And that happens all the time in this. To the point that I started to notice that they don't show characters' feet much.
Yeah.
Probably because of that.
This is an open world-ish action RPG. It's got kind of like God of War level design where it appears to be open world, but it's really just a bigger, wider cattle chute for the most part.
The thing that I kept being reminded of, and it was not to this game's benefit, is Tales of Arise. It has a similar sort of like big open areas you run through, and your little party runs around and hacks things up and gets in fights and et cetera, et cetera. Except I think Tales of Arise is pretty good. Like, I enjoyed that pretty well. And this is like playing Tales of Arise if I was drunk and underwater.
Here's an example of how this game is bad. So they introduce this mechanic, which is this little thing that you activate, and it slows time. Now, if you were a good developer, when somebody activates this thing and the whole cinematic happens or whatever, and then it's the player like, okay, what do I do now? Oh, it's slowing time. Oh, look. Your brain says, okay, it's slowed down these ice platforms. I need to jump across them. Okay, makes sense. So you go to jump across them, and you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. Like, that one passed too fast. So the first thing a good developer would do is, like, time the ice pads so by the time you get to the edge of the water, that first pad is there. It's not 20 feet downstream. It's there. And then you line up the second pad so you can jump right to that second pad.
Yeah, this seem to be random.
This game does not work that way. So look, the first pad's already gone. Okay, now I got to wait for the second one. Here comes the second one. I jump on it. Now, oh my gosh, I can't make it to the other one. I got to wait for the next one to show up. The next one does show up. You cannot jump to it. You can't jump far enough to get to the second pad.
And then it broke.
And then the consulting agency, call them in, because we were needed on this game. The combat in this game is so slow and cumbersome. Everything feels like it's delayed. There's all this crap going on, but it feels like you're doing nothing. The enemies are damage sponges. They take I'm fighting this little stupid ass turtle. It took me like 20 freaking hits to kill the dumb ass turtle.
Turtles are dangerous.
Watch, look at the damage. How long it takes to kill this dumb rank and file enemy.
Well, like, you're supposed to use like these elemental attacks and pop them up and stuff, and like, but then you're trying to do the air combos. The air combos are terrible because it's very hard to line up your character with things in the air because the jumping's like mushy. Like, none of it feels good to play. They honestly probably shouldn't have put a demo out.
No, there's like these mounts that you get that are these like, they even joke about it. Look, they're like, is it a dog or a bear? Like, you can't tell.
When I was looking forward to this game to some degree, it looked kind of, like you said, it looks better. It looks better in the trailers than it actually is. It looked kind of charming. I like a lot of the older Mana games. This is on my fantasy team. I thought it was going to be. I'm real worried about it now.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll give it to the people who reviewed Bounty Hunter who don't know what a bad game is, and it'll be fine. But I don't know. Like, it was weird.
I forgot this was on your fantasy team.
I thought this was a shoe-in. I thought it was an easy 80.
Easy layup, yeah. If it doesn't get any better than this.
I mean, I don't know. I constantly felt like I was missing something playing this, and I'm like, is it because it starts in the middle of the game? This clearly starts after the first like major area.
You cannot make that jump.
It's very weird.
It's just...
I did make that jump, but I had a different pattern of ice than that. I think. Well, also don't forget you can air dash.
Oh, right. So
you could have made that.
You're probably right. I could have made it with the air dash. You're right.
But again, you haven't played 10 hours of the game learning to do that.
Yes. Nothing feels good in this game.
No, it really doesn't.
The cinematics are awful and awkward and way too wordy. The animation, the facial animation doesn't match the voiceover. As you said, characters just slide around during cinematics. Like, it just has... Obviously, it's not as bad as Star Wars Bounty Hunter, but it has a lot of problems that have been solved a long time ago in video games.
I just keep comparing this to the Tales of games, and it just doesn't match. It's just... even the worst Tales game doesn't feel this bad to play. I don't know what happened here.
It's just so slow. Like, there's no flow to it.
There's no flow. His combos end in like these big, chunky slashes that make him
with
unable.
With a pause, where he pauses.
A big pause. You can't cancel out of him. Like it doesn't feel good. Like that's the biggest thing I can constantly is like none of this feels good to play. I
try to not criticize games like this that are in preview stage or where you play an early demo because a lot of times they can fix this stuff. They're not fixing this stuff.
No, this is the game.
This is what's going to be in the game.
And I straight up, like, if I, just speaking as a person who plays games as a consumer, I download this demo, I play this demo, I am not spending money on this game.
Yeah.
Like, end of line.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad you put this demo out so I didn't waste $70 on this thing.
Again, they could have asked the Duck Consulting Agency, should we put out this demo?
No.
No effing no. You want to ruin any chances of your game selling any units?
You want to take the Rube's money and hope that they don't figure it out before it's the refund period.
Or hope that the Rubes just convince themselves that it's still good stuff.
That might happen too. I mean, look, man, I saw threads about this game where people were praising it as the best thing they'd played all year. I'm like, I don't know what you're fucking talking about, dude. Like, I don't get it.
Oh, man. It is bad. And I see someone, Link So Good says a JRPG on a budget. I don't really think that this does have a small budget.
It doesn't look small budget.
No. It's just the team is just not good enough to make a modern action RPG. Like
go back to, like, that Grand Blue game earlier this year. Like, it's infinitely better than this.
Even thinking about, like, let's just take away the combat. Because combat, it does take a certain kind of skill to create great combat. Let's just remove that out of it. It still doesn't handle, like, the RPG stuff well. Like, I started digging into all this stuff. It was so confusing. I was like, what the hell is even going on?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is because they're just throwing so much at you and you haven't on-ramped like you would in the normal full game. But, like, even that's, like, a bad way to present a demo.
Yeah.
To me, it just says the beginning of the game is real slow.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to start you with that.
Is this the beginning of the game?
It doesn't seem like it because they're leaving an area they've clearly had a big thing in.
Right.
And they've picked up a bunch of different characters. And the cat guy, like the hot cat dude, is clearly a recent acquisition who has a big backstory to him.
Yeah.
And she's clearly got some relationships with these other characters.
Well, she's like a redneck.
Right.
She has like a southern twang,
but she clearly doesn't start with them, is what I'm saying.
Right,
right. She's someone you picked up along the way.
She has a southern twang. In this world, somebody has a southern twang.
That just means that the character in Japan is voiced with an Osaka dialect. That's literally how they translate that.
Oh man, and it has all the.
Now I played this in Japanese.
You did?
I never used the English dub.
That's probably for the better, man.
I can't.
Let me tell you, the voice acting in this in English is not great. But the demo does last for like an hour. I did make it all the way to the end. Like, eventually you get on a boat. Like, I found like these areas where they're like these stay alive missions. Did you play any of these?
No.
Where you get warped to this world and it's just you and your...
I found a couple of these, but it wouldn't let me go in.
Oh, really?
I don't think I did the thing I was supposed to do before I do that. No,
yeah.
I never felt that. I stopped playing this pretty quick.
Yep. There are these arena sections where you just go to this special place and fight endless enemies. And then eventually in the demo, you get on a boat and you fight a big squid boss. And that was the best part.
Never done that before.
This was the best part of the demo, but it was also very awkward. Because you're trying to attack this squid with the crappy combat in this game. And it feels like you're not attacking or landing your blows. It doesn't give you great feedback of when you are landing. Like, there's a delay when the hit point, like the minus hit points show up. When you're hitting the boss. It's just... Man, oh day, Matt. Like, I can't believe how bad this game is. I just can't. Like, I don't know who Square Enix has doing QA and quality assurance for their products, but they need to find somebody new, or they need to start working with consultants or something, because this game...
Well, the problems in feel on this go back to the very beginning. Like this is something that you needed to figure out, like, in year one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know why it feels that way. Everything is too mushy or too slow or too slippery none of it is tuned properly. That's the only way I can describe it.
It just feels rotten to play. It sounds bad. It looks okay until you start watching cinematics, and the animation looks terrible.
Yeah, that's like I do like the actual assets. Like
the art style.
I think that squid looks cool.
Yeah.
I like the kind of the sketchy, almost hand drawn look it has.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah.
Again, that's us really digging for compliments here.
I do like the art design for the most part. It looks like a game I would like to play. It just isn't a game I liked playing.
That's a good way to put it. And this game is coming soon. It's coming this month. So This is it. Like, there's not going to be any drastic changes
Good luck,
made.
fantasy team.
Yeah. I mean, if you get a 5 or higher on this, I'd be pretty happy.
I think it's going to get 7s or 8s.
You think it will?
Yeah. Wow. I think I think this, if you assign this to the anime RPG guy, I think this isn't going to rock the boat.
Even they will have to admit that this plays
I don't think
like
I've watched people refuse to admit it like all week. Like I was looking for. I haven't seen another negative opinion about this demo.
Wow.
We're the only ones.
Wow. Well, that's why you guys watch and listen to GameFace, because we tell it like it is.
The two crazy old guys don't like the anime shit. That's apparently what we're here to do.
Well, I don't really care what the art style is. It's just the core of the game is not good, no matter how you slice it. The art style is irrelevant, really.
No. Like, that's the thing. It's like something like Tales of Arise. Like, I didn't love that game's story, and like it was a little weird and a little over systemy, like those games tend to be. But I really enjoyed playing it, like moment to moment. Like I never dreaded being in a fight. The fights lasted the right amount of time. I felt like I had some control over the other characters and could call them in to help me when I needed it, or like set up the combos properly. And I never got that out of this.
Yeah.
It just felt like all these characters were just fighting randomly, and like every once in a while something would happen, and sometimes it happens and it messes my combo up. And
right.
I don't. Maybe it's fair or unfair, but I spent almost the whole time I played this wishing I was playing Tales of Arise, and I haven't thought about Tales of Arise in like 2 years.
That's Visions of Mana. It is coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. No Switch version. And again, it's coming pretty soon. It's coming this month. But I would say steer far clear.
Yeah.
There's way better games to spend your money on this month.
Like if you've ever seen that meme with the cat in the suit with the newspaper,
yeah,
and it's like captioned, "I should buy a boat."
Yeah.
Like this demo made me go, I should go play Tales of Arise again. Like that's what that turned into.
Yep, it's not good. So there you go. That's Visions of Mana. Again, it's coming out pretty soon, but you should just put it in the back of your mind right now to just completely wipe it from your memory banks.
Cinetech says Tales combat for me feels too chaotic. Like, I think this is more chaotic because you don't have any control over anybody.
In a very strange way.
Yeah,
it's chaotic.
And they don't pay attention. Like, there's been things where I was like fighting a turtle. I'm like, okay, I gotta get around him. I can't be in front of him because he'll hit me. And I killed the turtle. I'm like, okay, cool. And I look over, and all the other characters are on the other side of the fucking clearing fighting like 4 guys. I'm like, where?
Or all of them are ganging up on one enemy.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, like I could have used something. I don't know.
I could go on and on with my criticisms of that game. So anyway, there you go. That's GameFace's take on Visions of Mana. Everyone else's mileage may vary. And then our last game we're going to discuss today, very briefly, Valorant, which is Riot's shooter. It's competitive shooter. Riot, obviously, is the studio behind League of Legends. It's working on a fighting game called 2XKO right now. And this is its first-person shooter. A lot of people compare Valorant to Counter-Strike.
Riot might want to recruit the Dell consulting agency with their naming patterns.
Yeah. And this game has been out for a while on PC, and we did cover it when it came out on PC, and that's not why I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it here. However, the reason I'm mentioning it now is because yesterday, or the day before, it just launched for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, so it's finally on consoles. And so I was like, you know what? I'll give it a go again, see if my opinion on it has changed at all. I didn't like it that much when I played it on PC, and Matt, now that I've played it on console, I still don't like it much. This is a weird shooter to me. So it's one of those shooters where when you run around, there's no bob. So it's like you're moving around on like a rail when you move in this game. In general, the traversal in this game feels terrible. Like, it just feels like you're riding around like on ice. I don't understand why they've done it this way. I mean, it makes it easier to aim. So you don't have to account for like the bob as you're running or moving around. But it just, The other thing I would say, too, is the time to kill in this game is way too short. I got in, and there's cross-play and everything, and I was playing against like some good players here and there, and literally, by the time I saw them, I was dead. It was very, very hard.
I mean, isn't this just like Counter-Strike style?
It is. So you, like, so depending on the match type that you play, if you play the objective-based modes, and in this, basically what you're doing, instead of planting a bomb, you're planting a spike. If you play those modes, you can hit, like, if you're playing on PlayStation 5, you can hit the touchpad, and it'll bring up a weapon where or a menu where you buy stuff.
Well, I meant the no bobbing.
Oh, yeah. It is very much like Counter-Strike. Though this whole game
Counter-Strike doesn't do that,
Nope.
right? I'm not remembering that wrong?
Nope.
Because I always thought that Counter-Strike felt very skatey.
This is the same thing. I mean, this is really Riot trying to make its take on Counter-Strike.
Yeah. Are these League of Legends characters, or are they
No.
new characters?
They're new characters, yeah. And I don't know why they haven't put League of Legends characters in here. Because the characters in 2KXO are League of Legends characters.
Yeah,
You
I
play
know,
as
that was
Fiddlesticks and
always a League of
Braum
Legends fighter.
Yeah.
I remember when the Cannon Brothers started on that.
And it's just, if you're, here's the other thing too, is like, I hate the special abilities in this game. Like, a lot of them are like, and again, it's Counter-Strike, so a lot of them are territorial. Like, you can put up walls or barriers or smoke screens that you can't see through. So a lot of it is like trying to create choke points and herd the enemy team through the choke points. So you put up a wall so they can't use like the right lane. So then they all start coming through the center lane. So you go over there and you try to camp and wait for them to come through the center lane and mow them down or whatever. I'm just not a fan of that style. Like, here you can see, put up the firewall. They can't cross the firewall. They also can't see through the firewall. So there's a lot of different strategies involved in this game that you wouldn't have, or wouldn't work really in like a Call of Duty. And it's, look, I'm not like Call of Duty or bust guy. I don't have to play a Call of Duty game or I'm going to hate it. I just don't like the whole structure of this game. And again, as a noob, the time to kill in this was just ridiculous. Like, I can't tell you how many times I came around a corner and just saw the person and I was dead. It was very frustrating as somebody new trying to come into this game. Also, when you first start, you can see you only have 6 characters to select from, but there's literally like 30. So they're really stingy with giving up the free characters. Now, I will say this. If you play it on Game Pass unlocks all the characters for you, which is kind of cool. So that's one thing I was like, like, that's a strategy that Microsoft can use with Game Pass with free-to-play games to make people play the free-to-play games on Game Pass instead of playing them on PlayStation or on Switch. So if you play this on Game Pass, all the characters are unlocked. But then it was just like overwhelming. Like, trying to find a character that I enjoyed playing with was very tough in this game. I feel like a lot of the power-ups aren't intuitive, and there's not on-screen tooltips for some of them. Like, the one guy you saw earlier, he has this ability where it brings up a map. And I was like, okay, like, he's going to try to drop, like, a bomb or something on a location using this map. But I could not figure out how to actually drop the bomb. I could figure out how to bring up the map and then move the cursor to where I wanted the bomb to drop. I couldn't figure out where to drop the bomb. And I'm looking at the screen. There's no place on screen telling me how to do it. Like, I felt like you kind of need to read a strategy guide before you play this game to even have a chance at being competitive at it. Now, I wasn't terrible. Like, I was finishing games with, like, 8 kills and 13 deaths or whatever. It wasn't, like, that bad. But I just felt like my skill level at shooters in general was not coming through in this game. I felt like a lot of times I died and I just didn't have a chance at all. And maybe some people will say, every shooter's like that, Shane. If you play Call of Duty for 100 hours and I come and play it for the first time, you're going to be sure. They
do seem to die pretty quick, though.
The time to kill is very quick, yeah. And that's something they could probably tweak, but this game's been out on the market for so long, like, they've already settled in. Like, they think
it feels like they've chosen that. I mean, again, like Counter-Strike. You die fast in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, it's true. So if you're looking for more of like a fantasy-oriented Counter-Strike, I think this is a good option. That's not something that I'm really out there searching for.
It does seem like a pretty specific
niche market
target. Yeah.
But again, it is free to play. It is on PS5 and Xbox Series. And if you are a Counter-Strike fan, you probably will like this. And Counter-Strike isn't on those consoles. So there is an audience for this. And honestly, yeah, there's an audience because matchmaking is like lightning quick in this. Like, I never had to sit and wait for people to match with. And there's tons of different match types. Like, in every one of them I played, there was a ton of people playing each of the match types. The other thing, too, is the matches. Like, I didn't feel like the tooltips were great for the match types either. Like, as far as, like, where do I get the spike? Where do I take the spike? How do I plant the spike? Like, all the tooltips in this are very small and hard to see with all the stuff going on the screen. So, I feel like Valorant fails in some fundamentals. Whether you like its design or not, I think it's going to be a choice. Whether you like games like Counter-Strike or not, is whether you're going to like this or not. And there are people, obviously, who love Counter-Strike. It's one of the biggest shooters in the industry, decades running now. So I know there's an audience for it. It's just not me. I didn't have a lot of fun playing this game. The second time around, it didn't really change much. I still kind of had the same experience I did the first time. It's just not in my wheelhouse as far as shooters are concerned. So there you go. That's Valorant. Figured I'd circle back and play it on consoles, give you guys some quick impressions on it. The download, I think, was like 20 gigs. It wasn't that much, so it's not that big of a commitment if you want to download it and give it a chance yourself. What?
It just the way things shift. So it's only 20 gigs. It's
right.
What kind of a download is that? It's like,
yeah, now, I mean, for me, 20 gigs, I can download that in like 4 minutes or 5 minutes.
But I just remember when...
Once upon a time.
When that hard drive was 150 gigs. And...
Yep. And that's all you had. Yeah. Or the Switch. I mean, it was what? What was the biggest model for that? 30 gigs? Wii U was the biggest model, was 30 gigs.
Yeah, I think so.
Switch, I think, is bigger than that.
Was it?
I think so. Like 125 maybe?
No.
No?
No. I don't say it was like 30.
It might have been. Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, Ashes and Hourglass is 32.
32. Yeah. I remember the Wii U for sure was...
Some of that's taken up by the OS.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah. So basically 30 when it's all said and done. But anyway, that's Valorant. I didn't want to spend a lot of time with it here on the show, but I did give it a go, and I figured I'd at least mention it and let you know. Like, some of you guys maybe are curious about it, because maybe you're a Counter-Strike fan and you're a console player, and you're like, damn, man, like, it is kind of crazy. Why is it Counter-Strike on consoles?
Yeah, I guess it isn't.
It's insane why that has not happened. I have no idea. It's a cash cow. Like, I don't know what Valve's thinking, but anyway.
Wasn't there ever a console Counter-Strike of some
I don't
kind?
think so. Not to my recollection, there wasn't. I don't know why. It's really weird. Maybe on Dreamcast there was one, if I remember correctly. I seem to remember maybe...
It was supposed to be. There was one. It was canceled.
I think you're right. I think it came out after it died or something.
Yeah, didn't it? No,
there's some kind of story around it.
It went because it was like the Sega stuff. Didn't it go to the original Xbox after that?
I don't know.
Wasn't there a Counter-Strike on the original Xbox?
I don't think so, Matt.
I'm looking.
I do think there was a story around it with Dreamcast in Valve's games, where like Valve didn't get them done in time before the Dreamcast started dying.
Yeah, they were supposed to put,
and then
stuff
something
on the
happened. Yeah. Anyway, just more ancient history. But anyway, that's Valorant. It's free to play. It'll take you 5 to 10 minutes to download it. If you like what you saw in the B-roll, give it a go. If you listen to what I said and it doesn't do you any favors, then stay far away.
Counter-Strike Go, original Xbox.
It was.
Yeah.
So they did end up porting it over to Xbox instead of the Dreamcast, I guess.
It was on the original Xbox. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
But that seems to be it.
Okay. Well...
In fact, there are still people asking for Counter-Strike 2 on console on Reddit 6 months ago.
Wow. I mean, they should be. If you're a Counter-Strike fan, why can't you play it on console? It's silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, now it's time for... That's right. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a game, and you try to guess the name of the game before Matt does. A couple things before we get going. If you've won this calendar year, do not play. You can only win once per calendar year. Number 2, the chat goes into slow mode, so don't just type stuff in all willy-nilly, because it may come to pass that you know the game, but you just texted something, and it won't let you do it for another 50 seconds, and you lose. The third thing is we give away a PC game to the winner of this, so if you don't play PC games or you don't have somebody to give a PC game code to, please do not play. Let somebody win this who will actually use the code themselves or give it to somebody else who will. We're short on time. I'm being a little micro machine guy on this because I want to get it in before we run out of time. Matt, are you ready to go?
Sure.
Okay. Here's the first screenshot for Name That Game. In 3, 2, 1, go. As always, the ground texture. MOClip20, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. For 22 months, that's awesome. Body Harvest, no. There's Emperor Dread. Witcher 3, no. Although, yeah, that does look like the Witcher 3's grass.
A little bit of look at that.
Good call. South Park Stick of Truth. Come on, Eric Cartmenes. Flat out, no. Any more guesses on this first image? It's like either you know it or you don't with the ground texture. It's like either it clicks in your brain or it doesn't.
Gothic 3.
No, but that's also a pretty good guess. Enslaved Odyssey to the West. We just did that one. Like, what?
Yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's funny that you brought that up. No, Ashes in the Hourglass is not South Park, the Fractured Butthole. I put the right emphasis on the right syllable there, Kyle. Any other guesses on this first one? Starfield, no. Okay. Last of Us Part 2, no. From Ed Rock the Truth. Any stragglers? God of War Ragnarok, no. From Sleeping Turtle 3. Okay, we're going to the second one. In 3, 2, 1, go!
Days Gone.
Not Days Gone. Although somebody should be able to get it from this. We have a winner. It's Veritas. It is PUBG. And I knew it when I put this together. I knew that that was going to give it away. There's your applause, Veritas. Great job, man. No, it's PUBG, everybody. You can stop guessing.
There's a lag.
Yeah. Great job. But here's why I knew somebody would get it on this, because it's all copy and paste PUBG. Mm-hmm. It's like that house is replicated like 1,000 times on every map. Here, I'll show you the other images as well. There's the third one. Here's the fourth one. That definitely would have given it away because that crate is like everywhere. And then I gave you a little bit of the helmet there on the left too. Obviously, every character in this game has a stupid helmet. And then here's the final one where you see the whole damn map and a little bit of the player in the bottom right there. So great job, Veritas. I'm also very well aware that you've been a supporter of ours for a long time. You've been watching our show live here on twitch.tv/SIFTDGames for years. And it's great to see people who have supported us for a long time win. So congratulations. You can send me a DM right here on Twitch. You can send me a DM on Sifted. I'm at Shane there. You can send me a DM on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. You can send Sifted a DM on Twitter at SIFTDGames. All those ways you can get at me, and I'll get you your free game. Congratulations once again. Awesome job getting it on the second image. I knew there would be some PUBG player who would get it on that one, but it's hard. It's like, what could I show in PUBG that isn't copy and pasted a million times? There aren't that many things. So that's why the other image was like kind of like the desert or whatever. Like, I tried to have general shots, but I figured that would give it away, and it did. So congratulations. Let's see. That's it for GameFace 398. Before we go, just want to remind everybody that we're supported 100% at patreon.com/sifted. In fact, let me just roll that graphic right now for people who are maybe just watching and not listening. That's spelled SIFTD without the E. And again, we really could use your help. If you've been sitting on the fence, you've been watching for free or listening to the show for free for years and years, it might be awesome if you could actually help us out finally. I wish I could afford to just give everything away for free. That would be awesome. I wish we had enough traffic that we could just serve ads and we could make enough money off of that. We can't. So if you like GameFace, if you like what we're doing at Sifted, if you like independent games editorial, try to support us if you can. Again, go to patreon.com/sifted. If you can't do that, share the show, like the show, comment on the show. Again, share it on social media. That could be a real game changer for us. Or if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, help us out with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, the instructions for doing that are down below. If you've already hooked up your accounts, just go there right now and do it. Please do it. Go to twitch.tv/SiftedGames and just click the little button there, and 2 seconds later, you've given us a free $2.50. It could not be easier. We would really, really appreciate it. So let's see, Matt. I'm already nervous thinking about what we're going to do for next week's episode. It's like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to play this week? Like, there's not a lot. But one thing I do know is we're pretty good at putting together entertaining shows for you guys, and the news just doesn't stop coming. The news obviously carried this episode pretty well. So thanks, everyone, for showing up. Thanks, everyone in our chat. You guys were awesome as usual. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. Hopefully you can join us sometime. It makes a big difference in our show, so thanks to everybody who shows up and does all that stuff. Vincent says, get into the Marvel Rivals beta. I can't. I tried 5 times to get into it. They wouldn't let me in. I applied, never got an email, never got a call, tried again. They just won't let me in. I can't get in. So if any of you guys have an extra Marvel Rivals code that you wouldn't mind sharing with your boy Shane, I will absolutely play it and cover it here on GameFace next week. But I can't get in. I've tried to get in. They won't let me in. So it is what it is. But anyway, thanks to everybody on our chat for showing up. Thanks to Vincent for holding things down in our chat, as always. Thanks for all the fact-checking in our chat and all that stuff that happens.
Oh, yeah, we should play the Inazumi 11.
Oh,
Isn't that
yeah.
out?
There's a demo. It's not out yet.
Okay.
But, yeah, that's a game we could probably play for next week. Smaller game. But anyway, we'll take anything we can right now. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. GameFace is up and out.